Welcome, everybody, to a special episode of the Circle of the Earth Fellowship Roundtable. It's going to be a fun one. We're going to be doing a debate review. Recently, Austin Witsit Gets It was on InfoWars and had a conversation. I don't know if it's really called a debate as there was no moderator, but we're gonna call it. They called it a debate. We're gonna call it a debate review. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and say hello to everyone on the panel. Go ahead and welcome everybody, and then we'll do just a little housekeeping, not as long as normal, but just a little bit, because I do want to shout out obviously some of the creators of this. So let me pull a couple things up while we say hello. So I'll jump over to Robert. Welcome, brother. Good to see you. Uh, I am very well. They missed you,
Okay.
but I got it turned on now. So yeah, I'm doing well. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good, thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, Shabbat Shalom. Sun is down for me as well. And it's good to see you. And yeah, I'll be 3 streams this week, so I appreciate y'all joining us tonight for this because it's a little extra, showing up and talking, which is fun, but it also is a tad bit of work to come on and be presentable and all that. So I appreciate y'all being here. We'll jump over to our brother Kyle. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Shabbat Shalom, brothers. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you too. Excited
Yeah,
to talk about this debate. Have either of y'all checked it out and watched it?
yeah. I've seen all but the last 10 minutes of it when they
Okay.
were kind of wrapping up. But yeah, most of it is actually pretty good. They let Austin cook there on a few subjects for a little bit. So I don't know. I thought it was actually pretty interesting. I look forward to something that's a little more moderated by someone less biased with less radio interruptions.
Yeah, no, totally. The whole radio and the comeback, and it was kind of unfair. We'll get into this more, but it was kind of set up unfair where he got the beginning word and the ending word because of the format, and there not being a moderator to give each person a X amount of time. So, but we'll get
All
into
right.
that more in a little bit. And yeah, I think Austin being able to go on there on a huge platform and talk to people that are super parallel with True Earth, right? Like they believe all the things that we believe. They see all the conspiracies that we've seen, and it's almost infuriating, right? Because it's like you believe the like you say don't believe the government, they lie to you, but this government entity called NASA, no, you can believe all of what they say because we know that it's the globe because we know it's the globe because NASA says it's the globe. So yeah, I think it was good, and also and we'll be watching it here in just a few minutes, but you'll see those that haven't seen it that Harrison has a lot of weak arguments, and I think he maybe unintentionally shared his weakest, like his weak point when it comes to his argument and his belief, at least as he prescribed it to be, that he gave it right out front. He said it's about like the spiritual element. He doesn't want to talk about that. He doesn't want to talk about the Bible side of it. He just wants
All
to
right.
give these, questions that we've heard a thousand times, and even though we explained it to them, just like we'll see Harrison do, he's basically saying, "Well, where's your model?" They stand on that. A, we
Yeah.
have a model, so we're way more likely to be true than you who don't have a model. Definitely when we're like, we all can look at the Gleason map and be like, that's probably a pretty accurate thing. But we also know, I have it right here. But also we know that it's like they can hide stuff, including masses of land. We don't know. We can't go past the 60 South parallel to see if there's anything more. If there is, like, we know that Antarctica exists, but can we go? We don't know. So there's all of these parts that are these systems that have been put in place that basically allow them to lean on what is really logical fallacies to come to these conclusions. But they have the, preponderance of, I'll call it fake evidence to show that what they're saying is true. But us truth seekers, right? When we each individual really looked at that from that point of view, the thread started to loosen, right? And it started to unravel where we could see things that we couldn't see before because we had those layered mind propaganda, predictive programming, through the public education of these certain concepts and ideas, and that goes right along with our series, right? We were all taught dinosaurs and asteroids, and
they're almost like little like safety markers to keep you from finding too much of the truth. Where like if you start to question one thing too much, you'll eventually fall on one of these things that'll make you reinforce what you originally believed. But coming to the understanding of creation, it literally dismantles all of those things together.
yeah,
And so I don't think this gentleman Harrison knows that really what he's doing is not like professing evidence and facts. He's just kind of spitting his faith out there, what he believes to be true without a preponderance of evidence or any evidence at all. Just kind of those mainstream debunking claims that the 10 proofs that the Earth's a globe kind
yeah.
of it's really basic, really, really mundane. I don't think he even kept up with, some of the stuff that Austin was talking about, how gravity is, little g gravity is just, an explanation for, a density, buoyancy, and electrostatics that we have naturally on the Earth, and that can be manipulated, with
And
currents and frequencies.
I think that, like, you literally brought up multiple logical fallacies they use. First is he uses hand wave dismissal all the time with the evidence that is given to him, but then he also leans on what is it, popularity or majority, right? He uses majority all the time, and of course we'll see this. It's almost done. But all the logical fallacies that he uses over and over and over, is that type of mindset, right? And that what I think it all boils down to is those are all emotional responses. When we'll see this, when Alex Jones comes on and asks a question, instantly answers that question and then goes away without giving Austin a response. That is an emotional thing. It has and he even I know there's a logical fallacy where you call to your past experiences, right? Where you say, "Oh, because of this experience, I know this is to be true." And so you will overlook the evidence saying that it's not true in order to maintain that belief. So, okay,
Yeah,
let's see here.
some people straight up lie to themselves and be like, "Yeah, but I've seen the curve from an airplane window." It's
Even when their own
it.
evidence will say it's impossible to see the curve at that evidence, they
Mhm.
often like to use, and I've had people within my life use the Lake Pontchartrain, and showing
Sure.
the bridge, going over the curvature. They
Hmm.
don't understand enough that the fact that they think that's the curvature rate would
That's a
mean the
small
earth
ball.
is way smaller than they even
Yeah,
realize. And
exactly.
so
Right.
even
It's a
the
tiny
evidence they
ball.
use, it's an emotional, see, here's proof. They're not thinking, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier in Sean's chat, where they don't Oh gosh, I just lost it. But okay, let's see here. We got 3 minutes left on it. So uh I don't want to bring it up. Okay, let me show you. Let me do some housekeeping real quick. Pull this up. I need to switch. Give me 1 second, everybody. Um, but yeah, so what you were kind of talking about earlier, or what I mentioned to y'all, is that this is oops, wrong one. This is a debate review. We're also going to be doing one here shortly too. As Austin is going to be back on InfoWars with Owen Benjamin, the Big Bear, moderating a True Earth debate, and I don't know who the positive position of the heliocentric model is. I'm not sure about that, but that is coming too. So look out for that.
So Vader, they're like
Your mic's low.
saying about your microphone being low,
All
and
right,
ours is loud.
y'all's okay. All right, how's this, everyone? Tell me if this is better. If it's still low, let me know. But they said that everyone else's sounds great. It's just me
Yeah,
is low.
yeah, ours, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, give it just a second, everyone. Um and this has a minute and 15. So we're almost there on the download, and then we'll start getting it. And so coming up, guys, if you haven't watched the debate, you'll basically get to be seeing it in good big chunks. And feel free to go off camera at any time, but because I'm downloading it, I think we're gonna get away with having to deal with buffering issues. So that's almost done, and then we'll play that. So yeah, I think this is I think it's big news. It's big news that that Austin, a channel that really, dude, he only has like I think 36,000 subscribers. Is because I get that for those who are not inclined to think about those kind of topics in depth, they can kind of get lost in what he says, and often his proponents will say, "Oh, you just use word salad, right?" And what that
Hmm.
actually reveals is that which is okay, that they don't understand the arguments that he's actually making, and from the perspective that he's making it, it's so different. It's like a person who's been in the dark looking at a bright light, or going into a room with light. It's like it's too bright. Like they can't look what's around them. So yeah, okay, it's
Hmm.
done. I'm gonna pull this up and
Also,
share.
your microphone's still a little low, they say.
Still low. Okay. Let me change something real quick, everyone. Edit filters. Okay, I'm gonna turn it up. Let's go
And
to.
Witch's review of his debate, he's like Harrison. It's almost like Harrison wasn't really listening to him, you know. So
I mean,
whatever he might have been saying, he either just wasn't understanding what he was saying, or he just simply wasn't listening.
Yeah. And who knows?
yeah.
Maybe obviously he's on a studio set. Maybe he has someone in his ear. Someone's talking to him,
Yep.
giving him points. So he's not even listening to Austin. He's listening to what's in his ear. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'm not
I
saying he was or wasn't doing that, but just an
I
observation.
thought it was interesting. Alex showed up and hopped on the microphone for a minute. I thought that was a little funny, but
Yeah.
No, it
I,
was definitely funny, but like, you know, would you agree that it
t-
was a emotional response to his
oh yeah, what he's like, I
Yeah.
know the Earth's a globe because yeah,
I took
it's
a picture. I was out there with my dad, and my dad and I went out there, and I took a picture, and it was a great time. Sitting back, drinking beers, taking pictures of the moon and
we
I
had
Saturn.
know this
we
astronaut
had all
who
this
told me
equipment.
this testimony.
We had all this
Yeah.
equipment. We did it for years. It was a part of my, manhood of growing up. So how dare you ever say that what I'm saying isn't true is true? Because it's absolutely true. Because I have this emotional response. That's why I'm not going to let you answer, and I'm just going to walk away after I answer my own question. But yeah, anyways, buy some boner pills. So it's like literally.
Yeah, it almost seemed like whatever their format for their debate started to kind of fail at that point, where they weren't getting the answers out of Austin that they wanted, and Harrison wasn't responding in a way that I think they were. It's like, I don't know, some of his responses just made them out to look kind of dumb. It's just like, you're losing this, man. You're not doing well.
Yeah,
So.
I absolutely agree. All right, so let's check this out. I'm sharing it if y'all want to check it out here, or obviously you can also check it out over. Oh wait, is it literally buffering right now?
No,
It's not. Y'all are good.
I don't see it buffering.
Okay, it's just doing it on my YouTube studios on both of them. So hopefully it's still live. Let me know if y'all are having any issues.
Is there something that's supposed to be playing right now?
No, it's not supposed to play. It's. I'm looking at
Check,
the
check, check.
studios, but I'm gonna.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna start playing it. I apologize for the wait. It just looks like it's
Okay.
being weird on YouTube. So here we go. And I'm gonna skip through this so we're not watching all the commercials and stuff.
Gentlemen, to the American
But I will let this first part play.
Journal, I'm your host, Harrison Smith. My guest and opponent today is Austin Witsit. He is a flat earther. He's our guest today who's going to be debating on behalf of Flat Earth Theory. If you want to know more about Austin or Flat Earth Theory, you can follow him on X at WitsitGetsit or by going to witsitgetsit.com. Austin Witsit, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the show.
Absolutely, man. Thanks for having me on. How's it going, brother?
Pretty good. And so about a month ago, InfoWars Twitter account put out a question: who do you want to see Harrison Smith debate? And your name was by far and away the most popular response. Why is that? Why is there this hunger for the flat Earth debate, but for you in particular? Do you think?
I think I've done pretty well in the debates, and typically the opponents are not all that worthy. Humbly, they're just not typically as informed. So I think that, especially with InfoWars, there's a huge crossover, right? They just want to see.
Okay, guys, this is literally downloaded onto my computer. This is not on YouTube. This is downloaded on my computer. Why is it buffering? It's so annoying. I apologize.
I don't know, but I hate to tell you, apparently your microphone is like 60% compared to ours, or even lower, like 40%.
All right. I wonder what happened. Okay, let me try to change this again. Hopefully this didn't do anything. That would be really weird if that just fixed it, but I'm going to do something else. Nothing changed it since last time, so... Alright, is this better, everyone? If this is better, please let me know. And again, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Again, I downloaded this whole thing onto my computer. This is not streaming from YouTube. This is on my computer, and it's still buffering. That makes no logical sense to me. So, it's still low. It's okay. Let me see something.
He says now sounds
Testing
better.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I hate
Yeah, they say that's better.
Oh God. Yes, a bit better. I literally have the gain up so much, so it makes zero sense that. Okay, it could be louder, but definitely better. And this is a Yeti, so it's like... Okay, I'm gonna switch microphones. I'm gonna jump off of my Yeti, and I'm gonna jump to my headset. No, I can't do that. I can't do that. Because then y'all have echo.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is this better if I talk like this?
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna literally just hold it in front of my face so that it's better. All right, let's try to play this.
The position accurately represented on kind of the big stage, if you were. So I think that's probably more what it is. I think a bunch of people think I'll accurately represent what we think.
Well, and obviously there's been a lot of comments I've seen saying either this won't happen because InfoWars is controlled, or I don't know, all sorts of speculation.
Maybe because y'all have deleted multiple of y'all's flat Earth videos, ones including Eddie Bravo, which turned a lot of truth seekers, a lot of true earthers away from InfoWars because of this deceptive tactic.
About why InfoWars doesn't cover flat Earth theory. But let me just ask you, because we got a little first 5-minute segment, and then we're going to have two 23, 25-minute segments to close out this hour. We're doing minimal commercial breaks here. We are on the radio, so we have to take some, but we're going to take them minimally. So in the first 5 minutes, I just wanted to introduce you and sort of talk about the idea and everything. How did you get into flat Earth in the first place?
Yeah, so similar to what a lot of people say. So you have the side that says InfoWars is controlled opposition. They won't talk about flat Earth. And then you have the side that says it's a CIA psyop used to distract people. I had a similar response. It's funny actually. I heard about it through the rapper B.O.B.
Right.
So he was dropping the Elements mixtapes, and he was basically 100% on point with all the conspiracy theories he was mentioning in the mixtapes. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I had researched all of them. Then he said the Earth was flat, and I was like, "Wow, bro, you just made me look ridiculous to everyone I was telling to listen to you." Right. And then, like, similar to most people, I had the initial reaction of what does that even mean? And then you start to just ask 1,000 questions of, well, how would this work on flat Earth? Well, how would that work? That doesn't even make sense to me. So then I just went to look up pictures of the Earth from space. I'm like, this is going to be easy. I have millions of pictures. And that was not the case. This was 2015. And the last claimed picture to even be real at that time was 1972, so the Apollo missions. And needless to say, I was already very skeptical of the Apollo missions. So immediately I thought, okay, well, there may be something here, right? Which there should be millions of real pictures. I should have live HD live streams of the Earth from space. So that's how it started. And then I kind of fell down the rabbit hole. And I think this is an important part of it all as well. You'll instinctively just say, well, how would eclipses work? How does this work? How does that work? And if you can't find an answer, you think, oh, well, then it can't be flat. The actual way you have to go about it, and this is why all flat earthers exist, is they went to disprove flat Earth, and more so they went to prove the globe. And then when you look for the actual, evidence that supports the claimed size of the globe, you've run into problems, right? And so if we falsify the globe, we don't really need to replace it, or it remains true. So that's pretty much my like really succinct journey through this. Is I just went to look for evidence of the globe. I went and made observations myself. It just didn't stack up. And needless to say, like years later, it just gets worse and worse. And I can assure the audience, flat Earth is going nowhere. Because of the lack of evidence. So, that's kind of my journey really quickly.
Yeah. Well, it is interesting, and we'll get into the actual debate portion here on the other side. It's sort of the first debate we've held, so it'll be interesting, but I guarantee it'll be fun. And let me mention, today's debate is brought to you by BrainForce Ultra, InfoWarsStore.com. Take your BrainForce Ultra, and we'll hit the ground running on the other side. Stay with a short 60-second commercial break, and we'll be back with Austin Witsit to debate Flat Earth. All right, Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the great Flat Earth debate. Myself and Austin Witsit. Austin Witsit can be found on X at Witsit Gets It and his website, witsitgetsit.com.
I just want to state really quick. Okay, I do understand that it's a radio and all that, but for a debate, the fact that Harrison is getting the first word, meaning he's bringing in from the break, and also he knows the timing of the break, so he's also getting the last word. And so you know what, I think I'm going to play the commercials just so that people get to see not only that fact is true, but how he uses that power to kind of use some logic fallacies as the time is wrapping up. So let's keep going, and we'll take a break here in a minute and talk, discuss it. So let's go.
Where he talks flat Earth as well as a number of other conspiracies. And so I figured the way that we would do this, I've seen other online debates do it, where both sides will take about a 10-minute opening statement to state their stances, if you need all 10 minutes or not. And Austin and I talked during the break, and we decided I'll go first. Then Austin will get 10 minutes to respond. That sound good?
Sounds great.
All right. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and begin. I want to start with sort of three preconditions from my perspective, what I'm bringing into this debate. First of all, I do not care if people believe in flat Earth. I have absolutely no stake in the matter. I don't think people that believe in flat Earth are stupid. I don't think that, I understand the impulse. I understand the questioning of institutions. I get all of that. I don't discriminate against flat Earth people. I just simply, honestly don't think it's really worth discussing. But we are discussing it here, and we'll get to why that is. But I don't care if you believe in flat Earth. I don't judge people by that at all. I have family and friends that believe in flat Earth. I respect them tremendously. Two, I don't have any training, indoctrination. I barely have education in the matter. I have no loyalty to NASA or any other governmental organization whatsoever. Just like all government organizations, NASA lies all the time. That doesn't mean the Earth is flat. But three, in my position as a professional conspiracy theorist, I'm really incentivized to actually believe in flat Earth, if anything. I know there's a huge and extremely supportive audience of flat earthers, and if I was cynical and greedy, I would pretend to support flat Earth because I know that the support that could get me. If anything, I'm sort of anti-pandering here. I know about half my audience believes in flat Earth, but I simply don't. And, it would really seem like it would be in line with my general position, which is questioning authorities and questioning the official story. But at the end of the day, I just sincerely don't believe it. So those are sort of my preconditions. I don't have any training. I'm not loyal to any, science. I'm not a trust the science type of guy. I don't actually care if you believe in flat Earth, and I'm really incentivized, if anything, to believe in flat Earth, but I just don't. And so why I'm against the flat Earth, also, I can sort of divide into three parts. One, I just genuinely do not think it's true. I researched flat Earth. I'd heard about it like you. I had gone in going, actually, I went saying, I'm ready to be convinced. I've heard people think the Earth is flat. I think that's awesome. Let me be convinced. I went in with a sincere willingness to be convinced.
Yeah, he went in with a willingness. Okay, he's talking about this, and look at the imagery that they're showing you. They're literally showing someone ripping up a globe, right? They didn't just randomly pick these clips, right? So,
no, in fact, I've seen these. I've seen these, and I'm pretty sure it's in a Netflix documentary that's to, sort of make fun of flat Earth.
Yeah, and it's just like the Flat Earth Society, right? And a lot of the times,
exactly,
they will challenge that. And I think, Austin said in the beginning, he said, they voted for me because I will give the most accurate representation of what the people most of the people believe. So, and I think that's right on. And because oftentimes, people don't do that. So it's misrepresented all the time. So, yeah, let's keep chugging.
I found the arguments against the widely accepted heliocentric model to be entirely unconvincing. So I just don't think it's true. Two, I think the spiritual interpretations are total nonsense. Regardless of the cosmic model, Earth, I believe, is a priceless jewel of unsurpassed galactic importance. I see God's handiwork in all of creation, including the divinely arranged solar system. If anything, I find the concept of flat Earth completely out of step with the rest of creation, and I can explain that later. But 3, I think the overall discussion about flat Earth is detrimental. I'd almost go so far as to...
Okay, I gotta stop right there, because he literally just said, number 1, I don't care, right? 2, I have lots of friends and family that believe in the flat Earth, and I highly respect them. And then his third point is 3 points, one being that he thinks it's detrimental. What do you mean, Harrison? How is it detrimental, sir? Let's hear what you have to say, sir.
Say toxic to the discussion that we have every day, which is about the lies told by government to keep us under control. I actually, in doing my research, I really came to the conclusion that, if anything, flat Earth is a psyop promoted by the powers that be to distract, divide, and discredit the truth movement. So, breaking down those 3 portions. Here's how I see it. There are natural phenomena that I can observe every day with my eyes that have no readily apparent explanation. The sun, the moon, the stars, eclipses, sunsets, sunrises. These things are evident but mysterious. I don't have an answer to them, evidently prima facie, just from my own observation. So if somebody came to me and told me that we're standing on a stationary plane and that there's a dome above us that rotates at a continuous, degree, and the moon and sun revolve around the Earth, I would say that makes sense. Yeah, that comports with my observation. It certainly could be the case. But if somebody else came along and said, well, actually, the reason the sun looks like it's circling around us because the Earth is spinning, and all the other aspects of the heliocentric model, I'd have to say, yeah, that also makes sense. I can also picture that as being true. But then you have things like stars that don't behave like other stars, whatever you want to call stars. The points of light, there are some that wander, right? Planets, that's where the term planet comes from. They seem to wander independently. Now, if you assume the Earth is at the center of these planets, you can actually map the paths. They're just sort of twirly, wiggly lines. But you can do it. You can predict them, and you can actually track them and measure it, assuming that the Earth is the center. That does make sense. It's just you're going to get sort of a different path for each planet that make different motions depending on the time of day. But then if you shift the center, the assumed center, to the sun, and you take a heliocentric model, all of these disseparate and seemingly random paths just go shoot right in the middle. Suddenly it's all very nice, clean, explicable, concentric circles. That makes absolute sense. Obviously, these planets all seem to be affected by the same force, not completely different forces that give them different paths. They all actually take pretty much a similar path, just in a concentric circle model.
A concentric circle? Wait. I thought they're ellipticals, which would have points on them that would necessitate an increase of speed or velocity.
Yeah, change of direction.
And change of direction, which is something that would 100% have to be physically felt with the Earth movement. People, and on that side, they just lean on that. But if that was the true, like I have often have asked heliocentric model minded people, okay, well, if you were in a train that was moving, but it was so well designed that you didn't feel like the ups and downs, could you ever feel that you were on that train? And they'll say no. I'm like, well, what if you ever increase in speed? And they're like, well, yeah, if I increase in speed, I'd know. Because often the heliocentric minded people will use you don't feel like the movement when you're in a car. Yeah, because you're in an enclosed environment. But yeah, when you turn or speed up or slow down.
But that's the thing. When you are turning, that is an increase in speed in itself. And you can feel that in, a bike, a motorcycle, a car.
Even in the slightest turn.
Yeah, the change of direction is a change of velocity, and it would be felt. And that would be it wouldn't be constant either, because it's when you're closest to the when the Earth is closest to the sun, you have a change of velocity there, but then 6 months later you're on the other side of it. It's yeah, the entire thing just kind of falls apart when they say, yeah, you're just in this constant motion and you can't tell. And that was, Einstein's whole his entire theory of relativity is based off the fact that you just wouldn't be able to tell because everything is so constant and fluid. But even in his own model, it's not. You're spinning, you're corkscrewing, you're orbiting, you're doing all these different motions. There's change of direction, there's change of velocity.
Yeah, and on with so many bodies that is impossible to even put into concentric circles, and there's no way to, as he believes, prove those eccentric circles even work. Right now, what I will say is, he said, I've shown both evidence, I could see both will be true. Yeah, a good lie has to be believable. And where do these lies come from? Isn't there a father of deception? Like, don't we know who he is and what he's about? And so why is it so hard to say that there would be a grand conspiracy that was believable, like most, alternative to the conspiracies are, and that is why they are generally accepted as true by the public.
Yeah, and that whole thing's a cop out. Sorry. Yeah, that whole thing's a cop out with, oh, yeah, well, of course, like it looks like the Earth is stationary and fixed and the stars are moving, but really we're the ones spinning. That whole argument is really a cop out with the modern understanding of physics today, where there should be, distant galaxies and parallax, and that may have worked in the earlier understanding of the Copernican model, but with their eccentric model they have now, where we're not even at the center, there's other galaxies and other solar systems. It's impossible. It doesn't work. So it's a cop out, in my opinion.
Absolutely. What are your thoughts, Robert?
Um, I was just thinking about the motion that we don't feel, like the spinning of the globe. So we're constantly moving towards the sun and then away from the sun and towards the sun and away from the sun, and its gravitational pull on us. So we should feel that. The moon is supposed to cause tides, so it has some gravity that's we should be feeling something there. But yeah, we're not stationary, like in the car, just sitting there in the car going straight and steady speed. So we should be feeling something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You hit it completely right. Definitely, because they say, oh, it affects water, and we're 75% water. So why wouldn't it be pulling us up and down at the same time, like it does the water that is in the ocean, or in lakes, right, or in our bodies? So
But I suppose we're so used to it that we don't even notice it.
yeah, that's literally, see, and they have those type of things to lean on, where it's like, yeah, it's unprovable, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. You know what I mean? We don't have any direct evidence, but we have all this math, right? We have all this, speculation and theory that is unprovable, unverifiable, but yeah, so preposterous. Sweet. All right, let's keep chugging along.
So basically, I've got two people in front of me. I just picture myself as like a goat herder in Greece 2,000 years ago. I just see this stuff, and I've got two people in front of me. One that's got an argument for flat Earth, and the other that argues for the globe Earth. And I know that in your argumentation, you like to present the globe Earth side as presenting a model. Therefore, it's making a positive claim. Therefore, it has the burden of proof. But to me, these claims are equally burdened. I mean, they're both claiming to be able to explain what I'm seeing. Just because one side claims to be able to provide a model and the other side doesn't mean that second person has no obligation to explain anything. I'm looking for an explanation for these things, and one side can present it, the other side can't. So the tactic I've seen you take is sort of almost assume, like, take the position as if it's a trial, like a criminal trial, where the prosecutor has the burden of proof, and your job is to simply disprove or undermine or cause reasonable doubt in those claims. Like if NASA is the prosecutor and Flat Earth as the defendant. But that's not the case. I mean, I see both of these arguments having a burden of proof to some degree. But even if this was a criminal proceeding, and that was the case, that reasonable doubt was the standard, I still would have to say guilty, because the prosecution's case is airtight. You can nitpick at their evidence, but I've really seen nothing that undermines the core argument. Right. So their story makes sense. It fits all of the evidence, and we can get into all of the evidence for Flat Earth later, but there isn't any. So that'll be an issue. And in the second part, so that's the first part. Just from my observation, what I'm seeing, looking for an answer, the heliocentric spinning Earth, round Earth model fits everything that I see, explains it to a very high degree. And even if there's, little things I don't understand here or there, it doesn't do anything to make me think the whole model is fake. So that's just why I don't buy the flat Earth arguments. But the second part is the spiritual aspect to this. And simply said, I do not believe that the shape of the Earth has any spiritual importance whatsoever. Flat Earthers seem to ascribe extreme spiritual significance to the shape of Earth. I do not.
All right, we got to talk about that, because Genesis 1, chapter 1 of Genesis literally describes the stage where his entire story, the Father's, is going to take place. That entire stage, right, was made through and for the Son of God, okay, which Scripture says. So if you don't think that the creation of the earth and its trueness, if you don't think that the true earth has spiritual implications in our lives, then what is the importance of even looking into conspiracies? Because what you're saying in essence is, what is it? How does that spiritually negatively affect us if we're believing in this lie and our entire worldview is based upon this lie, and the way that we interpret Scripture is a lie? It makes zero sense.
Yeah, I really wish Austin had gone into the more spiritual implications of how all of the aspects of heliocentrism come together under one guise of, the Big Bang, evolution, cosmic evolution. Everything comes about through these random sets of events, and one thing only works with the other thing. You get rid of the globe, the Big Bang doesn't work. You get rid of the globe, evolution doesn't work. It's this entire woven lie that dismantles all at once, but it's the spiritual implication of that we are nothing more than an accident that won a cosmic lottery. We just chanced into existence, and our time here is meaningless. There really is no purpose to it. We're all just gonna we're all going to die here anyway, and in a billion years, 20 billion years, whatever, our sun's going to burn out, our whole solar system's going to grow cold, the entire universe is going to expand into cold nothingness, and it's just going to be this nihilistic wet dream. And that's exactly what it is. It's the evolutionary nihilistic wet dream for an atheist. And none of it is real, and it has very real spiritual implications if you believe it.
No, yeah, absolutely. And dude, you hit on so many points there. My head is spinning. But like the gravy overflow. But like literally, the fact that he showed right there, I don't. To me, it's not spiritual. And here on the screen, they're showing us, guys. Yeah, this is really this is really in space. There's no way they could ever possibly, with any type of modern day cinematography, be able to reproduce this in any way. Oh, wait. You know what I mean? And so they show these things while he's talking about faith. But I really think, like you said, Austin, Austin should have, because this is the thing, is with believers, they can say, and honestly, I agree, God could have made a globe, right? That is possible within the power that God has. Yes, he's all powerful and could have made a globe and made the universe as modern science describes, okay? But they use that as basically a skip jump. They basically say, well, I believe in God and I can see that that it's in the Bible. So like you can't use the Bible to tell me that the earth is one or the other. And he used the word round as opposed to a sphere. And I think they do that very specifically to kind of to latch onto some interpretation, some scripture. But literally, we know, if anyone has dug deep, if anyone is a piece seeker, a puzzle piece seeker of truth, you have seen that there's the word chug and there's the word der. One means ball, one means circle, and he could have used one that was already used, established as a word meaning ball, but he chose a word meaning circle to inscribe on a plane. And so, you know, people will use that word round to, because everyone believes that the earth is round, right? Like, regardless of whether it's a sphere or a circle. So, yeah. Any thoughts from you, Robert?
I want to hear him throughout this thing because I think he uses the word spiritual, but does he use the word biblical? Because I mean, spiritual could be broad. You know, I hear all kinds of people talk about spiritual, and they're not. That has nothing to do with Yahweh or the Bible.
And it can also mean, you know, in the sense of like how it implies to, you know, what you believe. I understand aligning it with scripture, but for anyone who comes into enclosed cosmology, they quickly, you know, if they're an atheist or even agnostic, they seem to quickly lose that and show the appreciation towards some creator. I'd like to say most people go towards, you know, the actual Bible, but yeah, there is underlying spiritual implications to the earth being a globe or the earth being flat, whether or not what the scripture says, in my opinion.
No, totally. But that's what I'm saying is like, when those who are believers will use that God could do it either way, right? Like, what does it really matter? And we'll basically see that. But it's interesting how we see these same type of things. Like, no, I don't want to talk about the spiritual side of it. And you're right. It may not have to be biblical, but what he's saying, there's some baked in assumptions in what he's saying. But let's hear the rest of it.
Whether the earth is flat or not, I feel the same way about God. In fact, I think the globe earth model comports more with my vision of God, as it is a sweeping, majestic, minutely detailed, intricate, and perfect model, just like most things in creation. A flat earth model, to me, is childish and simplistic in comparison.
Yeah, I don't know how we're going to get through this. I'm going to have to skip like massive portions for this to ever be in any type of decent amount of length video. But literally, and maybe we'll chop it up. I don't know. But he literally said it's this just perfect model that's all laid out, eccentric and everything. Yet they change it all the time. And the whole point of science is that it's quote unquote changing and evolving, right? That's why they had to go, no, sorry, our math was wrong. The Earth isn't 14 billion years old. It's 28 billion years old. So please listen to this new number and know that everything still works the same way. We were just off by 100%.
Right.
You're right. Or, hey, guys, the moon is outside the atmosphere, right? We had to go through the vacuum of space. Oh, wait, no, that's not possible. So actually, guys, now the moon is within the Earth's atmosphere.
Right.
You don't
Or
believe
the sun's 11 million miles away. Now it's 23, you
now
know?
it's 93.
Now it's 93. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they make all these changes, and no one bats an eye and thinks that that changes anything. And it does, because it means that the R value that they based it upon from the very beginning is incorrect. That, as we talked about before, atoms, that they look at the world and based everything upon atoms, and then they look at the universe and they're off by 97%. How is that possible that you could believe
Dark
something?
matter.
Yeah, dark matter. Boom, there we go. That cleans it all up. Oh, well, that caused all these other implications into natural observable physics. Oh, okay, quantum physics. There's this whole other realm where everything works completely different in such a way that it benefits everything that we say and nothing what is observable in reality. It's preposterous.
It's a religion.
Here we go.
Nothing else in creation that I can observe, makes me feel like I'm in God's celestial hamster cage that the firmament would.
Would y'all mind watching it at like 1.5 speed?
Not at all.
Go ahead, do it.
Sweet. This will maybe make it better.
Okay. Never mind.
Actually, I wish I could. Maybe I can, but that's a video. Playback. Speed. Here we go. Let's go faster. Fine. Oh, do I have to like keep hitting that? What was that button? Speed. Faster.
Being said, I know that this belief is essential to understanding the why of the conspiracy, right? The idea that making people believe that we're on a planet spinning through Earth makes people think we're less significant, is therefore it's easy to sway people towards a materialistic understanding of the Earth. I don't believe that in the first place, but obviously that would be the reason why they would want to keep the shape of the Earth secret, if that was the case. So let's confront this conspiracy, because it would be a massive conspiracy necessary to uphold a lie of this magnitude. There's a concept, right? If you put yourself in the position of people who are trying to keep the secret, there are like a million other ways you could do it. And I only have about a minute left, so I'll just stream through these. Basically, the scale of the conspiracy necessary to keep this up is too vast to be feasible. Millions of people have worked on space programs. Either they're all in it, or there's some sort of parallel industry constantly psyoping the people in the space industry. Whether satellites or balloons, every image from space is CGI, rocket launches fall into the ocean. Just one of these would require thousands of people working for decades in absolute secrecy, and the payoff is what exactly? Possibly weaken people's faith? Yeah, I don't buy it. The scale of deception necessary is frankly too great, and the payoff is non-existent. The third part is the psyop, and we can get into this a little bit, but essentially the only thing that gave me pause when researching Flat Earth was the fact that there are like fact checks, and that it is in fact censored. Clearly it is censored to some degree, not to as great a degree as other things, but I know we should all recognize at this point the YouTube videos that have a little Wikipedia box under are probably worth paying attention to. So that gave me a little bit of pause, but then again, just because something is censored doesn't mean it's therefore true, and we know things like QAnon are censored, but also entirely fraudulent. And to me, looking over the timeline, the growth of Flat Earth does not seem remotely organic. If you search news archives by years, there's no mention of Flat Earth at all, pretty much until 2013, until Obama, of all people, brings up the Flat Earth Society. And it seems like it came out of nowhere. Nobody mentioned it before about 2013, and suddenly it's everywhere. It's the transgender movement of conspiracy theories. Nobody ever heard of it a decade ago, but now about 65% of people make it their entire personality. So,
was that an ad hominem there, Harris? Like, is this comedy or a serious debate? Like, so people, I enjoy professional debates too. Eternal Light, I saw your comment earlier, but like, to me, these little jabs that he does where it's like supposed to be comedy, and I get it. It is a little bit funny in a way, but at the same time, he's also attaching it to a nonsensical ideology,
Hmm.
and obviously that's they're doing that for a reason.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's pretty weak on his part that that he has to basically make that joke in this debate.
And not to mention what he stated before is how, oh, no one ever mentioned it before those dates. Well, that's not necessarily true. There was Matthew Boylan who did his little comedy special before that, but then there was entire websites just dedicated to it. There was books that have been written throughout the 1900s, 1800s, even in the 1700s, and then there's the all of scripture and history in accordance with it itself. So it's one of those things where people are like, yeah, it didn't exist until 2015. No, we just had been in a deep deception until that point, and people started waking up a lot then.
Yeah, and obviously we all saw after that kind of blew up on YouTube, people will say, well, see, YouTube did that. No, their algorithm was sharing to people who it was actually working. It was sharing to
Hmm.
people
Oh, it was
content.
supposed to.
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, whoa, 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 we can't do that. We can't just share for free to people
Spoon
the
feed
content
gravy.
that they would already be watching. We have to make them pay for it in order for them to be found or to find. So, yeah, it's literally a controlled system, no different. But that's we are digressing. So let's keep chugging along.
That's my feeling on flat Earth. Floor's yours, Austin.
Nice. So I'm just going to try to address some of the meta things you mentioned here because that was a similar approach I wanted to take. We can get into the specifics in the open discussion. So like I said, I originally thought this must be a psyop and it's used to discredit all the other conspiracy theories, right? But that actually is not the case. Actually on the back of Alex's book, right, or Tucker's book, it mentions Alex. It says, he's super censored. Why would you have to do that if he's just wrong? He must be onto something. They don't censor flat earthers. And as you accurately pointed out, they absolutely do. And Avi kicked off Venmo, PayPal, Airbnb. We're talking about cosmology. As to why it's not as censored, there's no cover story, right? So with everything else, it's hate speech, it's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. It's dangerous medical misinformation that could hurt people. What can you say about flat Earth? Really nothing, right? So there's no even cover story to actually censor it completely. So what do? They shadow ban it, which is arguably worse because when Alex Jones gets kicked off everything, everyone wants to know why. When you're still on YouTube, people think, oh, you're not censored, and then they can't find you. Like if you search flat Earth, you get nothing but hit pieces. So it did absolutely explode. Obviously, the conversation would be, is it organic or not? But like you said, they pointed to the Flat Earth Society, which is specifically crafted misinformation. So that's like probably the strongest piece of evidence off the rip against the PSYOP narrative is when I looked into it, all the information that was presented to me as Flat Earth is not what Flat Earth actually was. It turns out it's totally different. It makes the position asinine, and it's not actually what they think. And so that's exactly what you would do if you're discrediting the truth. And as to the comparison to, say, QAnon, we know QAnon had a lot of truth in it. The reason QAnon worked was because it had a lot of truth. And so basically it was, don't get to these truths. If you're going to, we're going to round you up and guide how you interpret those truths, similar to Operation Trust, right? And just sit on your hands, don't do anything. So if it's a PSYOP, it hasn't worked very well because every single flat earther saw through the pandemic immediately. Every single flat earther protects their children from the onslaught of propaganda. Probably the highest percentage of homeschooling, in the world, it would be flat earthers. So as to it mattering or not, I'll touch on that. You did mention it does have spiritual implications in our opinion, and you articulated disagreement, but it's pretty undeniable. So the conversation really comes down to two primary points, and is the Earth moving? Is the Earth a sphere? Those are two primary things, and they're technically independent of each other, right? So the Earth could be stationary in a sphere in theory. And when you first go down that rabbit hole, it gets very, very interesting. To mention a few things, right? You obviously have the idea of geocentrism, as you mentioned. You mentioned the little squiggly lines. Well, it actually is just spiraling within a torus field. It's exactly the flower of life geometry, which we see all the way from the small scale to the big scale. We would actually expect the macro scale to fall within the flower of life because everything does, including the quantum scale. But it's called the Copernican principle. That's really like the foundation of this, right? It's the idea that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position. So I certainly agree with you, bro, that looking at the current model would require a creator. This place requires a creator regardless. And actually, the first and second law of thermodynamics show you that naturalism is insufficient, and you must invoke supernatural creator. For the sun and the moon to coincidentally be the same size in the sky, but actually the sun's 400 times bigger, just coincidentally 400 times further away. How is that not, requiring an intelligent designer? But at the same time, it isn't really about someone could say, well, I already believe in God. Well, yeah, but a lot of people don't. And atheism is the number one growing ideology, if you can even call it that, which results in nihilism and apathy and makes for perfect enslavement. So this is incredibly important. And when you look into the motion part, we were 100% undeniably lied to and misled about that situation. We're told that we know the solar system's a fact, and it's been proven the Earth moves around the sun. But in reality, you can look at Stephen Hawking, Edwin Hubble, Albert Einstein, Arthur Eddington, every major prominent astrophysicist or astronomer in history, and they will tell you, oh, we can never disprove that the Earth's in the center. We can't actually prove that the Earth is moving. It's equally viable or more viable. We prefer to not go that route because
Stephen Hawking said on grounds of modesty, and Edwin Hubble called it horrific and intolerable, a special and unique position. So that's a philosophical decision that they made for the world and then misled the world about what it actually was. So that's important. And we can obviously get into the specifics. You can 100% prove the Earth is not moving. It was done in 1887 with Michelson-Morley. And it's been replicated many times since then. And what happened was they brought in Albert Einstein, flipped physics all on its head to keep the Earth moving around the sun. And that's why all physics is at a standstill now, because they threw out the electrical field theory understanding of a background medium, or what is called the ether. They kept the Earth moving through space, and now we have this compartmentalization of physics that doesn't all work together. So to not overload everyone, my point there is that's one major part of it. Yeah, if the Earth is in the center of the universe, it had to be created. And I get you could argue that it would have to be created either anyway, but you have a much stronger illusory position of confidence when you say, oh, well, the universe is so big. The Earth is this tiny speck of dust in this ever-expanding universe, and just based on mere chances and probability, the Earth could exist and be habitable, right? And that is the type of thinking that leads people to the idea that, well, no, this place wasn't created. It was just random chance. And that it's literally the Copernican principle ideology, which is that the Earth does not occupy a special or unique position. So if the Earth's in the center of the universe, obviously someone had to put it there. It's the most special, the most unique position. There is nothing like it. That means that us humans who have domain on the Earth are obviously very special as well. People do not believe, quote unquote, believe in flat Earth. They stop believing in the globe. And they then realize, oh, wow, this has spiritual implications. People do not go and seek out flat Earth because they want the Bible to be literally true or something. It's quite the opposite. People find out that the scriptures are now viable again. And so then it also comes into curvature, right? And so that's the two major things. And we falsified the radius value. So when it comes to, well, all the model works so well, that's also not true. And we can get into it. Every single part of the globe Earth model took hundreds of years to theoretically patch together, and it doesn't work. From the core all the way to the universe, none of it works. It's not even close. And that's why you have dark matter and dark energy making up 96% of the universe. And it's just an illusion that we're in the center because everything's accelerating away from each other. All these crazy theories where if you just have the Earth in the center, you don't need any of that. And it matches all astronomical observations. You don't have to claim that everything is an illusion. So why were we not told that? That should be a very interesting question for the audience. You were lied to about cosmology.
Sorry, I stop it also over there, Alexander, because I give it a little time to load. Definitely now that we're watching it at kind of double speed. But I will be having less breaks and more kind of topics. I'll let Austin talk and Harrison talk too. So I appreciate y'all's patience. So let's keep going.
Like just on its face, even if you want to believe we're moving through space and stuff. So, and then the curvature, obviously, if the radius value is falsified, the entire model is falsified. Right? Because gravity uses that, day and night cycle uses that, everything uses that, alleged radius of orbit to go to space. All of these claims require that radius value to be true. Distances on the globe. So if it's untrue, the entire model is untrue. So that's a stillman of our position, is that we went to look for evidence of the globe and it wasn't there. And falsification is independent of replacement. And I'll say this analogy, maybe it'll land. It's like if I went and looked through my parents' closet and I found adoption papers, and I'm like, walk up to you and say, dude, Harrison, you'll never believe it, man. My whole life is a lie, bro. Those aren't really my parents. I was adopted. And you say, well, who are your real parents then? I say, I don't know. I just found out that they're not my real parents. I just falsified they're my parents. I don't really know who the real ones are. And you could say, wait, you think everyone in town's in on it? Everyone in the church is in on it? No, they believe the lie. They believe that those are my parents. And if you said, well, until you can tell me who your real parents are, I'm not going to believe that those aren't your real parents. That would be ridiculous, right? Obviously, the falsification that they're my parents stands on its own. That's the way that this situation goes. Frankly and respectfully, I would say it's somewhat coping. Do not focus on that. Focus on the evidence or lack thereof for the positive globe Earth claim, which is antithetical to all evidence and experience. And then focus on random questions like the meme says, oh, how does everything in the universe work? Oh, you don't know? Well, checkmate, stupid flirt, right? If you've ever seen that meme, that isn't a proper way to go about it. So that's kind of a lot of the meta arguments there. I don't really see this being a successful psyop. I think that it's done quite the opposite. And people should just step back and kind of look at the evidence for what it is. And that's what I encourage people to do. And just like you said, I will say, just like with everything else, like with the pandemic, we got gaslit the whole time. Oh, you science denier this, science denier that. Oh, you have no idea what we're talking about. Trust the experts. And of course, it was all a lie. It was all a lie. So ridiculing people, mocking people, dismissing them as a psyop and stuff is not an approach we should take as truth, right? We never do that. So long story short, when you look into the actual alleged claim that the Earth is a spinning globe, which again is antithetical to experience. So you're saying, well, I think you have the burden of proof as well. I agree. If we say that the Earth is flat and stationary, that has a burden, and it's substantiated with every observation and all-day experience that we have. Everyone experiences the Earth is stationary. Everyone experiences that the stuff in the sky moves in relation to the Earth not moving. We fly planes like the Earth is flat and stationary. We build bridges, runways, railways, all engineering as if the Earth is flat. Everything that we do is if this Earth is stationary and flat. The horizon, it comes from the word horizontal. So the default empirical position is that the Earth is flat and stationary, and that the sun and the stars and the moon, they move over top of us. There's a claim that comes in and says, well, that's actually an illusion, right? And everything is back. So that would have the burden of proof, and that's the line of logic for that.
All right, and with that is your time, and we are headed to break, guys.
All right,
I do want to say I would like to go back. I don't think Austin got the exact same amount of time. I think Harrison went into Austin's time, and then here he gets the closing statement. But let's keep going.
Things up. We'll do open discussion on the other side. If you got any videos or anything we want to play, we'll get into it on the other side. Stay with us, folks. Go to InfoWarsStore.com to support this important discussion. We'll be right back.
Ground control to Major Tom.
right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're skipping the next commercial break, so we got a solid 25 minutes to do open discussion with myself and Austin Witsit. Again, you can follow Austin at Witsit Gets It on Twitter and witsitgetsit.com. I lost my paper that says it, but that's right, right? Well, yeah, at Witsit Gets It. Okay. So yeah, open discussion time. Obviously, we both brought a bunch of stuff in our opening statements. I guess to me, again, every debate I've watched from Flat Earth sort of has the same paradigm, the same dynamic. It's somebody like yourself that's arguing for Flat Earth, and then there's like the Bill Nye the Science Guy, Neil deGrasse Tyson wannabe. And frankly, I don't really care about the scientific arguments as much when it comes to whether experiments are valid or whether the physics checks out. I really do just go down to like basic observation and logic and what would be necessary to cover this sort of thing up, and we can get into the psyop aspect in just a little bit. But like the moon is a sphere, right? Can we agree on that? Because I mean, to me, it's pretty undeniable. The moon is in fact a sphere that we can all see. Do you agree with that?
Well, I've never seen the other side of the moon, but I would agree that it looks somewhat spherical, sure.
Okay.
But I've replicated a moon like with a polarization where it looks like a sphere, and you can walk over there and put your hand right through it, right? It's a projection. Just with electromagnetic polarization in the atmosphere, you could have I don't know what the moon is, but I would agree, yeah, it's certainly round and looks like it could be a sphere. I've never seen the other side of it before, so I can't say I know it's a sphere, right? Coincidentally, we see the one side.
But the shadows on the moon certainly make it look like a sphere, right? I mean, unless you have another explanation for why the shadow moves the way it does across the moon, I mean, it basically has to be a sphere, right? I mean, are you saying the moon is a projection, or do you think it's a physical object?
I don't know what the moon is. I'm just saying I'm not, like, a lot of evidence to suggest that it's not particularly solid, actually. Like, even the Astronomical Society said that they've seen stars through the moon. There are things called lunar waves. The Terminator line, sometimes there will be things lit up on the other side of the Terminator line, right, which shouldn't be happening if it is a solid sphere with the actual shadow. I don't even claim to know that is, quote unquote, a shadow. We can replicate that with polarized lenses. It can just literally be like a plasma polarized lens, and it could be solid for all I know, and just be optically displaced within a medium. Both models, I think, because when you start hearing the stuff you've never heard, it sounds like I'm just reaching, making stuff up. But no, but both models claim that the sun and the moon aren't actually where we see them, right? That they're apparent positions. So that's interesting to know. It could be a solid sphere and just not where we see it. It could be relative to each observer based on their angle to it. So but this is what I will say, that is actually kind of a meme. Normally people do want it, like, what's the moon? I don't know, man. I just know that the Earth is not what they said. You know, I can ask you a question. Like you said, you're just kind of into observation, right? That's what made me a flat earther, bro. Because I did not want to be a flat earther. Okay, let's just get that out. Like, it discredited everything I ever said, right? I'm like the conspiracy theorist of my family. So like all of a sudden I'm going to come around saying the most ridiculous thing ever. I'm immediately discredited. So right. I went out and looked, though, bro. You can see mountains from 300 miles away. They should be 2-3 miles below Earth curvature, and you can see them. Well,
we'll talk about curvature here in just a second. But, you know, again, it seems to me like you can see the moon, and it's pretty clear what it is. It's a rocky body. It's solid. You can see the craters. I mean, powerful telescopes or even, you know, powerful cameras can zoom in quite a bit, and it's not a projection. It seems fairly solid to me. So, you know, to me, this is, you know, obviously just because the moon is a sphere doesn't mean the Earth is a sphere. And I know the argument that I've heard quite a bit is like, just because pool balls are circular doesn't mean the pool table is circular. Yeah, that's true. Just because the moon is a sphere does not mean that the Earth is a sphere, but it might kind of be like a hint, right? It might kind of be a clue. And it sort of means that if you use terms that I've heard where it's like this cartoon Earth of, you know, some idea of a orb suspended in nothing, it's like, well, that's not actually that ridiculous because we literally see one every day. I think the shadows obviously show that it's a sphere. And then you have things like the eclipse. And, you know, you brought up the fact that the sun is 400 times the size of the moon, but 400 times away. So it's, you know, a perfect match. And yeah, I mean, that whether the sun is 400 times or 200 times, whatever the actual multiplication is, the fact is that with solar eclipses, you can see that the moon is clearly in front of the sun, and yet they're the same size. So whatever that you know, calculus is, it is, the distance is equal to the size difference. You know what I'm saying? So obviously the sun is behind the moon. The moon is an object that is apparently equivalent in size of the sun because of our distance from it and the perspective of it. And again, that's sort of, I mean, if you accept that the moon is a sphere that's above the Earth, everything else kind of follows. I mean, I really think that debunks a lot of flat Earth. I mean, because then obviously the moon has to go away for a certain period of time. It matches up with the spinning of the Earth. I mean, if the moon is a sphere and is a solid object that's floating above the Earth and circling around it, I mean, that seems to me like it doesn't necessarily prove that we are circling around the sun, but it certainly proves that the Earth is a sphere and the moon is circling around us, right? But to me, again, that's just imminently observable.
Like I said, it could be a sphere. It does somewhat look like a sphere. I will just say stars have been seen through the moon, it appears. I think that reality is way more mind-blowing than we know, and people think they have answers to everything, but really when you look under the hood, there aren't answers for everything. But if we kind of talk about that, if we use like Occam's razor, that which requires the least amount of assumptions is most likely to be true. Doesn't mean it is true. But we see the sun and the moon appear to be the same size. We have a night light and a daylight, and they're the same exact size in such an extent that we can get perfect total solar eclipses. And they claim that is just a coincidence based on the way that a Mars-sized body hit the Earth and broke it up, and a little piece of debris stuck around the Earth, and then gravity coalesced into a sphere that stopped around 238,000 miles away. Just coincidentally, the size of that rock matches up with the size of the sun optically, even though it's 400 times smaller than it is.
That is the case, right? I mean, it is the same size perspectively as the sun, but clearly it's on the same plane as the sun since it passes in front of it. So whatever that differential is, it has to be, I mean, that is accurate, right?
Sure, but if it was just barely behind it, it would look like the same size. So they could be very similar distances in the same size, right?
Well, no, I mean, they'd have to be a little bit, because they are exactly the same size and different. And again, I don't think that just because the moon is a sphere, that means that I trust that they understand how it was created. Or, I mean, you know, moon could be hollow for all we know. The whole, like, it rang like a bell when they crashed something into it. I mean, there have been a lot of stories. I don't think we know everything about the moon's entire life cycle, but I do think it's a sphere in the sky, which, you know, would hint that there are other spheres in the sky. It would hint that that's a possibility. It would make me question why the moon doesn't fall when everything else falls to Earth because of gravity. You know, it would hint that either it's not affected by the force of gravity or it's being affected in a different way, which to me explains orbit pretty pretty well, pretty succinctly. I want to show a couple images here, because this again sort of illustrates to me that not only is the moon a sphere, but it's being lit by a light source that is extremely far away. We can go to some of the pictures called ball and moon, and there are a couple of these, but you can do it yourself. If you see the moon during the daytime and you hold a ball up, they have essentially the same shadow that will be cast on the ball as the moon, because they're both being lit by the same source, which would be the sun, which would be extremely far away. So how would this happen without an extremely far away sun lighting both the ball and the moon?
Well, for one, they actually don't look entirely the same, right? You'll actually see that there's a gradient of light on a spherical object. They are somewhat similar, yes. That's how we made the model, right? Looked at the sky and we created the model over hundreds of years. So of course it matches the sky. That's how we made it, globe Earth model. But there could be a relationship between it being lit up, or there are many theories about it. Like everything, it could have an electromagnetic relationship. It could be charging up. It could all be within the same energetic cycle above us or whatever. I'm not even saying that they don't have a relationship. Many people have tried to measure the moonlight and say it isn't hot, and there's all debate about that and stuff. But this is kind of what I was talking about, though. I get that this is probably even a good faith, genuine question. That's how you want to know how everything works. And since we've been given all these alleged answers as to how it works, we think, well, flat Earth has to replace everything I was told is true. But not really. We see a star through the moon. What they said can't be true. Like we just saw that the moon looks blue during the day, and then we showed a picture of the Earth from the moon, which was NASA came out in the minute they photoshopped one of those pictures and didn't tell the public about it. Right, just a second ago that was shown. So I guess what I'm saying is do you agree that if the radius of the globe is falsified, everything else is falsified? So as to a question like, how would the moon work on a flat Earth? I don't know, but it is because we measure the surface of the Earth. I think that is the most important part. And I want to say this one thing. When it comes to, you're right, it's like you can't look at the ceiling and say that's what the floor is, right? Mm-hmm. It's even more than that. It's if the Earth is in the center of the entire universe, it would be illogical to think that it's like everything else. It's the only thing that's in the middle. Everything else was created to move around it, right? So that's an important distinction there. And most people don't point out. It would be illogical to say the Earth should be like what's in the sky when everything in the sky moves around the Earth. The Earth is distinctly different, right?
But again, we're dealing with two forms of reality: the perception and the actual, right? So it looks like everything's circling around us, but that would also be the case if we were spinning. It would look like everything was circling around us. That would mean it was circling around us. So it doesn't seem to me like there's any evidence that Earth is the center. What about the mapping of planets? Because I know one of the things, again, we have an image of this motion of solar system planets relative to Earth. So basically, this would be the orbital path that the other planets would take: Mars, Venus, all these other planets. If Earth is assumed to be the center, and they're like spirals. They're like they move around a lot. And if the crew can pull up that picture, motion of solar system, we can pull it up on my screen. So how do you explain these paths and this motion without a force acting on the planets other than gravity? How do you have a planet going towards and away from us if they're circling around us?
Well, there is a force. Automatically, there's some type of force, right? Because everything's moving around. If you look at a ferrocell cell image of a magnetic field, so it's just a creative invention that was made, used two little pieces of glass, you put ferro fluid and another fluid inside of it, line it with LED lights, and you can see the magnetic field. Right. It makes that exact same pattern. The torus field, sacred geometry, the golden ratio, that torus field, every one of those planets pass perfectly within a torus field. And of course, the heliocentric side's explanation for this is it's just a coincidence, which is pretty ridiculous because we see the same geometry everywhere.
But how can it match perfectly when each planet is a different path? They can't all match perfectly because they don't match each other.
Yeah, but within a torus field, there are multiple different paths. Right? So if you look at a ferrocell image, and I could maybe pull it up, but you look at a magnetic field, you're going to see that all of those patterns are in there individually. And basically, each one of these quote-unquote planets are taking their own path within this torus field.
Real quick, I'm going to back up just to show this image because they have issues showing the image, but they showed it back here perfectly. This is what he's talking about. He's saying if you take their paths and you map it out in a toroidal field, you get all of these different sequences of the flower of life in their movements that all fit within the toroidal field. So I'm going to jump back and we'll keep going.
Yes. Right. So if you look at a ferrocell image, and I could maybe pull it up, but you're going to see that all of those patterns are in there individually. And basically, each one of these quote-unquote planets are taking their own path within this torus field. They all fit within it perfectly. And you said that you don't see any evidence that the Earth's in the center. You are aware that the current model says you can never prove that the Earth's not in the center, and that all astronomical observations make it appear as if the Earth is in the center of the universe, but
right.
That's just an illusion.
Well,
so
it's an illusion because we're on Earth, and this is our only platform from which to observe space.
Sure, and it gets a little bit more complex than that, though, because even like the distant galaxies moved in relation to the Earth, right? So then that's when Edwin Hubble was like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And they had to say the whole universe is accelerating and expanding in all directions to create that illusion. And then they're like, wait, what causes that to happen? Though there has to be some type of energy that would make it expand faster than the speed of light. And that's where you get dark energy, which is never been discovered, defined. It'll never be found. And then you have dark matter to fix the gravity problems. I will actually say you can use a Lorentz magnetic force to not get too technical, but it's pretty funny that you can show what's called a dynamic equivalence, meaning the way that the force makes objects move around each other from a geocentric universe. And it's a magnetic Lorentzian force. And what a coincidence, the patterns of the planets fit perfectly within a magnetic field's geometry. So it's more elegant, actually.
Okay, but none of that actually explains what the force is moving it or how it's set on this path. And the other thing is that you would also get paths that match up to this. If you were to take a Mars-centric model and plot the movement of the planets as if Mars was the center, you would get the same patterns. I mean, it's like one of those little toys that has the gear, and you put the pencil in and spin the gear around, and it creates the pattern. It doesn't matter which hole you put it in; it creates a similar pattern that will look on the face of it similar to like the torus field or the magnetic field. But that would be true if you plotted the motion of the Earth relative to Venus or Mars or Jupiter or any other planet. Earth is not the only one that plotting the rest of the planets creates this this design. So that again is not evidence that Earth is in the center. It's evidence that Earth is on the circular path that all the other planets are on, because that's what matches perfectly.
Well, it's not just about the paths; it's about distant galaxies, right? So you're right. You can match it on any planet or whatever, and you could treat it as if it's in the center. Certainly, with relativity, it says it's all equally valid. You can choose anything as the center. But this is a little different than that. They looked out into deep space, quote unquote, and saw the galaxies moved in relation to the Earth. They should not have been. In this model, the Earth is tucked away in an insignificant corner of the universe. It is a random, non-unique position. Everything should be moving every which direction in relation to, say, the singularity of the Big Bang or whatever people believe in, not the Earth. But they discovered it was. So it's not as simple as just I can put the coordinate system anywhere. It's that the universe has to be accelerating and expanding away from every other point. There is no center, and everything just makes the Earth look like it's in the center. Although you could map it out both ways. But that's not the proof. First of all, it's on its face. All observations show the Earth in the center. So to say it's not in the center, you're going to have to prove that. Then we went and looked further, and even the distant galaxies show that.
But I mean, there is the heliocentric model that maps everything and explains everything really well, and you can make predictions based on it that are proven out in observation. So, to say that everything centers around the Earth, obviously the heliocentric model is not centered on the Earth, and that's on a very small scale. You can say the whole solar system revolves around, or the whole universe revolves around the Earth, but at least in our solar system, it makes a lot more sense that things circle around the sun. I mean, the math, it makes a lot more sense in that regard.
If you assume that the sun is 93 million miles away and this huge ball of gas,
right.
Back, if you assume the size of it and then you assume gravity, which is that, the bigger the mass, the more gravitational pull, which isn't even considered a pull or force anymore because that doesn't work. But that's actually not true either. The heliocentric model doesn't work. I mean, this is why we have dark matter. It doesn't work because this is why we have dark matter.
There are certain aspects of it that we haven't figured out yet, but the stuff we have figured out works extremely well, right?
No. In 1933, a guy named Fritz Zwicky went and looked at galaxies, and he saw that this coma cluster, so a cluster of galaxies, it was off by 99% the amount of mass it was supposed to have for gravity to be true. And so they just said, oh, well, just plug in a number for missing mass. Now they call that missing mass dark matter. And it's still there. And it makes up 83% of the entire universe. This model isn't even close to working. Gravity is off by 83%. How bad does your theory have to be before it's considered wrong? Right?
Well, my theory actually, has the possibility of distant galaxies. Where are the distant galaxies in the firmament? I mean, how can you even make this argument if space doesn't exist? Does space exist?
No, outer space as defined, right, doesn't exist. But just like Edwin Hubble said, everything could be much more local, and the medium could be much more dense. And then he said, and might I add, suspiciously young. See, they have a bias against this because it creates a special position for the Earth, and it makes the universe younger, it makes it a closed system, and it means everything's moving around it. And they will tell you in all their literature that it's just a philosophical bias. They don't want to believe that. And that's not a straw man, that's what they say, right? They sit up straight, you can never disprove the Earth in the center. But the best way to do it is if the Earth is moving around the sun 66,600 miles per hour, conveniently enough, you should be able to measure that, right? And we have interferometry that was supposed to measure it, and it did not. And we've done it since then. The Earth is not moving, it's been falsified. So Einstein came in and said, oh, well, the device you were using to measure actually shrank. You just couldn't tell. And then time slowed down and created the illusion that we are stationary and you can't measure us moving. That's mainstream claim, is that the ruler shrank effectively, you just can't tell, and time slowed down, it just appears to be the same time to you,
right.
And therefore you could never prove that the Earth is moving, or of course just the Earth isn't moving, and all observations showing us what's really happening.
So,
and we weren't told any of this.
But then that would mean that if the Earth's not moving, then the stars are moving, the sun is circling around us again. So so we have a firmament dome around a flat Earth. I mean, you don't actually have a model, right? So what is your conception of what Earth is? I mean, again, my conception of Earth is not exactly super scientific. Like, I don't know all of the details of it, but it makes perfect sense. Earth is spinning, tilted axis, moon orbiting us, we orbit the sun, other planets also orbiting the sun. I mean, all that makes perfect sense. Do you have any semblance of a model for flat Earth at all?
Okay, so here he's claiming for the model. He just made all of those statements, like, so many logical fallacies. It's insane. Does anyone want to make a quick comment about what they've heard so far? All right, we'll keep chugging along.
Yeah, sure. So it's a torus field, just a torus field, and that explains pretty much everything. I can pull up an image. I don't know if that's possible, but a Farrell cell image of a torus field will show. You can just Google Farrell cell image magnetic field. You'll see a bunch of them. It's just a torus field, and there's a vortex in the middle. And what a coincidence, you take the magnetic flux data of the Earth, you put it on a flat Earth map, and you get a perfect vortex around the center. You take the planets and you fit them within the torus field. It's perfect. So, and of course, they claim
it's not perfect. I mean, you can bring up the image, but it doesn't match perfectly. It generally looks somewhat like it, but because magnetic fields, visualized match the magnetic field of Earth. I mean, that's not even. So, I mean, is this your model, or I mean, that Earth is round, so that can't be it, right?
No. This is a flat Earth. Ironically, this is actually the ISS trajectory on the left. This right here, and this is a Farrell cell image of a magnetic field. Right. All of these patterns fit perfectly within that. And then there's also this. This is the magnetic flux data of the magnetic field on the Earth. It all fits perfectly within what we see in a magnetic field. And then this is called a block domain wall. It's a plane.
Well, I'm just not seeing the images that you're pulling up. So if we can, if you can share your screen, I just want to make sure we know what you're talking about exactly.
Sorry, yeah, I am sharing screen on Skype right now, but I don't know if you can see it.
We'll figure that out. We have about 2 minutes to break, but we'll work that out with the crew during the break here. But what about, so I got some more images I want to show you. Again, I really just don't think that saying Earth is a torus field, I mean, that's not a physical description of where we are or how the world is composed or the universe is composed. I mean, is there a firmament? What is underneath us? Are we on a flat plane? Is there a map you can present to me that makes any sense at all? Is Antarctica an ice wall, or is it a continent that exists? I mean, what is the actual argument? Saying that it's a magnetic or torus field that's not actually a physical description of where we are.
Well, shouldn't we apply the same logic that we do with everything else that we look into as truthers? Like basically the critique is that we're not a cult of thought. You're right. We all think for ourselves, and we're all trying to figure out what's going on. And there was a cultish belief system presented to us that you're not allowed to question without being ridiculed, right? But like, what's beneath us? I don't know. What's beneath you on the globe? The deepest hole ever dug is 7.8 miles. No one knows what's below 8 miles. No one. And the globe model admittedly can't even explain it mathematically within their model with supercomputers. And what is Antarctica? You can't freely and privately explore past the 60th south latitude. We effectively live in a real life Hunger Games. Like, that's a real thing, whether you think there's a globe or not. You can't freely and privately go out there. And that's based on what our government did in 1946. They brought the Nazis over in 45. Operation Paperclip. 46. Operation High Jump. We went to Antarctica. And then we considered Antarctica our #1 focus.
All right, we'll be right back. We'll pick it up with Antarctica on the other side. Austin Witsit. The debate continues in the next hour. Stay with us. All right, welcome back, folks. We are on radio. This is a radio broadcast on terrestrial radio. However that works, we don't know. We're not sure, but somehow we're broadcasting worldwide, flatter globe. So we do have to take certain commercial breaks. This will be a short segment, then a 60-second break, and we'll be back for 2 more big chunks. We're just going to dedicate this whole hour to continuing this conversation. Clearly, we've barely scratched the surface. Antarctica. I think there's a lot of suspicious stuff about Antarctica. I think that there could be major military operations. There could be lost civilizations. There could be fertile land, right, underneath the ice with gaseous air pockets that preserve heat. There have been stories like that. I've read the accounts of Admiral Byrd and Operation High Jump, right? I get all of that stuff. But it ain't an ice wall. I mean, it does exist. And, if it was me and I was trying to keep some sort of military operation, some sort of breakaway civilization secret, it would be the greatest gift in the world to have a bunch of my worst enemies, the truthers and conspiracy theorists out there, thinking that it doesn't exist at all, that the idea of Antarctica isn't even real. And, I mean, the map doesn't make any sense. I mean, just how do you comport this with everything else? I mean, there's a yacht race around Antarctica, right? People have circumnavigated Antarctica. It didn't take them as long as it would have taken them to go on the outside ring of a flat Earth. So, again, if you're saying Antarctica doesn't exist, there's an ice wall or something, I mean, that alone sort of paints a picture of a model, because you have to have an ice wall around the outside and the Earth in the center. So is that the model that you're going with for flat Earth?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly open to that model. I think, again, the whole thing is detaching from making up claims you can't verify just because a bunch of people gave you claims that we can't verify, and so we need to replace them. But yes, it could be. It's known to be the highest elevation in the world. Just look up pictures of it. There is certainly what you could call a wall of ice holding the water in, can't fall off the edge of a lake. There are stories of extra land beyond that. Actually, Admiral Byrd even seemed to imply that. But there could be more land. And when it comes to the yacht race allegedly around Antarctica, just look a little deeper. And what you'll see is that these boats have a top speed. It's a race. They do a similar race with the same boats in the north. And if you compare the top speeds, it's a joke. In the south, their top speeds in a race are way slower.
Right.
But it would make sense if they're actually traveling further than they think they are.
No, there's sailboats, and the wind patterns dictated. So in places where there's high wind pattern, there's like northern trades, southern trades, like wind generally sticks to, because of the spinning of the Earth. Unfortunately, the weather patterns are fairly predictable, and there's not a strong wind that pushes you around Antarctica, unlike other places where they hold boat races.
Antarctica is known to be the windiest place on the Earth, and the southern jet streams are actually significantly stronger. You Google what place has the strongest winds on Earth, it will be Antarctica. I mean, I think they have the pictures ready as well. If you don't mind, if we pop that up just so people can see what I was saying. Yeah. So if you look here, you're going to see that is a ferrocell image of a magnetic field, that orange picture. And if you take the planets, they all fit right within that in little different portions of it. They literally do. I've actually overlaid them and transitioned them. They all fit perfectly within a ferrocell image. And then the other image is going to show you the magnetic flux data on the Earth on a plane, which conveniently, once they actually took this off the main website, they took the azimuthal projection off once people found it, and we had to make our own. It's a perfect torus. It's a vortex, just like in the magnetic field. And then that white line through the middle of that bottom right picture there is called a block domain wall. It's a plane, meaning we do live in a torus field. Even in the globe model, they have to admit this, right? And there's always a plane through the center of it, and that's where you reside, is on the plane. We can't go beneath that, right? And neither can anyone that believes in the globe. So just to clarify that, not to necessarily bring it back, but it perfectly explains where we are, explains containment, it explains the motions, Lorentz magnetic force, and it's all way, way more viable than the other model.
Not really. We'll be back in about 60 seconds. We'll continue this conversation. We'll overlay those pictures and see.
Oh, not really, but we'll be back.
I don't know what the crew's up to.
We're
getting creative with us. It's surface shrouded in. Witsit gets it, and his website, witsitgetsit.com. And of course, he's done this debate many times. This is my first to go, but I've watched many of your debates, and I have to tell you, some are infuriating, some are extremely entertaining, and I'm always torn in the middle, because the flat Earth people I always like more personally, but I just don't think they're right. I'm torn by this. But let's talk about some of the other issues that I see constantly brought up, like some of the main arguments for flat Earth, in favor of flat Earth, things like the curvature, seeing over the horizon, air next to a vacuum. I mean, these things I see brought up over and over, but they really don't seem that complicated to me. For example, being able to see over the horizon. I think you brought that up in your opening. The issue is not that you can occasionally see in certain circumstances and under certain conditions, you can see farther than maybe mathematically, geometrically, using platonic solids, you should seemingly be able to see. That's not the issue, that you have occasional times where you can see farther than you think you should be able to. The issue is that if the Earth was flat, you should always be able to see significantly farther than we can. I mean, how is it that on a flat Earth model, you can't see things thousands of miles away, hundreds of miles away, or even just tens of miles away on a normal day? I mean, what would explain that other than the curvature of the Earth?
Yeah, that's a good question. So there's something called attenuation. So light is absorbed into a medium, right? That's why you can't see the Hollywood sign from just a few miles away, right? I don't encourage anyone going and trying that. Just take my word for it. Stay out of there. But anyway, my point is that you can't see forever, right? The opacity of the atmos. There's actually a very famous observation of the Canigou Mountains from hundreds of miles away, and you can't see them until the sun sets behind the mountains. And then because that light is so much brighter and you have the contrast of the shadow of the mountains, you can see them. And they should be miles below the curvature of the Earth. So even in the globe paradigm, right, it would be, why can't we see the mountains before that? Well, it's because the atmos between us and the mountains are blocking the light. It's being absorbed, right, until you had a bright enough light to see it. So that's it's pretty simple. We wouldn't see forever on a flat Earth. That's a misconception.
Okay, but we would be able to see significantly further than we can. I mean, the average, view distance for the horizon's like 2 or 3 miles, right? But when I fly on a plane, planes typically fly at about 6 to 8 miles off the surface of the planet. I can look down. I'm looking through atmosphere, and I can see the ground perfectly well. So how is it that our view distance isn't at least 6 or 8 miles? Since I know from my own personal experience that I can see through the atmosphere for 6 to 8 miles when I'm in a plane.
Well, first of all, we see way further than 6 to 8 miles, right? I mean, it's not that sometimes we see too far. It's that almost every day you're going to see too far. The globe model actually says that on average, you see at least 15 to 20% too far. That's the average. But on a plane, you're looking straight down vertically through the atmos, right? And we have like density layers. So looking out horizontally through it, certainly closer to the surface, is going to be way more compounding, denser medium that's going to block your light. So it's not the same as looking straight down through it. I will say also, my boy Jaron, he looked up, or he went and made an observation in California like a week ago, and no one could see the mountains, right? They were 75 miles away. They were 75 feet up. They should have been blocked by hundreds and hundreds of feet of Earth curvature. No one could see them. So one might clap their hands and say, look, the Earth's a globe. We can't see the mountains. But then they pulled out their infrared camera and they could see the mountains. So what that proves, even if you thought the Earth was a globe, is that the atmosphere is actually blocking the mountains. The light from the mountains, you can't see them until you put out infrared, which cuts through a lot of the haze. It only has a small spectrum of light, a longer wavelength of light, and you're able to see it with less obstruction. So that's pretty simple. Also, this picture they're showing right here is also not proof that the Earth's a globe, because if you look at the same shadow in a plane, you'll actually see that it's out parallel below you, and it's merely a perspective thing. Okay,
but where's the sun in that picture? I mean, and you even said the sun sets below the mountains in the last example that you used, but that doesn't make sense. I mean, the sun doesn't set on a flat Earth model; it just moves away from you, right?
Well, it moves away from you and then looks like it's going down. Just like if you see a plane flying towards you, it looks like it's going up. And as it flies away, it looks like it's going down. Or if you look down a long street, you'll see street lights look like they're going down. They're all the same height, though, right? It's just perspective. The same reason that a hallway converges. The sun does the same thing. Naturally, we have many observations of the sun disappearing above the horizon. So the sunset happens above the horizon. So that actually perfectly matches plain Earth. The sun is just small, local, moving away from us. Looks like it's going down and disappears into the distance. But on a globe, it should always be going behind the physical curved horizon. We see the sun disappear above the horizon.
We see the sun disappear above the horizon?
Yeah, yep.
Not in the sunsets I've seen. I see it disappear below the horizon. But I mean, look, if the table, if this tabletop is the Earth, I mean, it doesn't matter how far away the sun gets. If I'm on the tabletop and the sun is above it, I should be able to see it, unless the sun is like a stage lamp, right? Like a spotlight, a shielded spotlight, where I'm blocking perpendicular view. I mean, if the sun is a ball, or even if it's just a disk, I should be able to see it. No matter how far away it gets, I'll still be able to see it. There's no illusion where the sun drops. I mean, it's pretty clear the sun drops behind the Earth and then disappears for like 12 hours and comes up on the other side. I mean, again, this is just observation, but it perfectly comports with the round Earth model. I do not see an explanation for this in the flat Earth model.
Well, so for one, it actually doesn't, right? They say that when the sun sets, it actually was below the curve of the Earth for multiple minutes.
Right.
Every day.
Right. Because light bends, yeah.
Yeah, so just another illusion that's convenient, right? But fine, yeah, sure, light could bend. It's not really.
But how do you explain sunsets? How do you explain the colors of sunsets without around it? Because in the round Earth, it's pretty simple, right? The lower it goes, the more layers of atmosphere it's going through. Certain light frequencies are blocked by it. Other light, as you point out, like infrared will break through. So you've got these spectacular colors because they're the whatever higher or lower frequency that break through the atmosphere. I mean, how do you explain sunsets having colors if the Earth is just moving away from us? I mean, there is no physical explanation for that, like there is in the round Earth.
Of course there is. You're looking at the sun, the source of light, through the most dense layers of the atmos, even though it's above you, which, mind you, it's 93 million miles away on the globe, far above the atmos, right? You're looking at an angle that goes through the atmos. So you're seeing it through all of those layers of air. It's just like how if the streetlights were going down the street, I could put my thumb up and block them. I could see a shadow relative to that. It would look like the streetlights are below my thumb. I could put a 2-foot trash can on the ground and see the streetlights that are 10 feet tall look like they're below the trash can, just based on perspective. You would be looking through the horizontal atmos, since perspective is having you look down at where the sun is. So you're going to see that light through that.
The sun often gets bigger as it passes, as it goes to set. I mean, it doesn't get smaller. It's not a diminution to nothingness, right? The idea that if it's just moving away, it should just get smaller and smaller and smaller. When it goes to the atmosphere, often the atmospheric lensing makes it appear as though, if anything, it grows bigger, but usually it looks like it stays the same. And again, like atmospheric lensing or refraction explains pretty much all of this. Like the idea that you can see farther than you think technically you should be able to. That's because, the Earth's atmosphere bends the light. I mean, light bends. Everybody knows this. This is why I can talk to you through a camera lens, right? Because the lens itself is bending the light. That's why, so the light bends with the atmosphere. And so it goes farther than you think it should be able to.
Well, that's different, though. That's two different media, right? So you have the lens and you have the air. It's two different media. It's called Snell's law, which is two different mediums, but not a singular one. Now, it's not that light can't be displaced within a medium. It's just that that's an unfalsifiable claim. They claim that light can be infinitely bent around the globe. You could see the back of your head if you wanted to, that there's no limit to it, which makes it unfalsifiable. But sure, you can say that. But there are certain observations we've made that falsify the refraction claim. And without refraction, the entire globe falls apart. For example, I had an Air Force pilot reach out to me and has chosen to remain anonymous for pretty obvious reasons. Verified him for sure, Air Force pilot. And he told me that he saw the K2 mountain range from 300 nautical miles away, and he was flying at 28,000 feet altitude, and the elevation of those mountains are at 28,000 feet, and he saw the mountains level with him. as he actually, did target acquirement, establishing the landmark with his manual viewing pod, he saw the mountains level with him from 300 miles away. It should be like up to 5 degrees below you on a globe, right? Because even though they're the same height, it's obviously on a globe, but it was level with him. And like at that height, you can't even invoke refraction, admittedly, because it's so high. It's like the much thinner portion of the atmos. And of course, it doesn't even go 5 degrees anyway. So, and that's what woke him up. The flat Earth was his experience in the Air Force, and I've never heard a rebuttal to that. Most people just claim the guy doesn't exist or he must be lying. Well, he certainly exists because I verified it. So if you see what I'm saying, he saw the mountains 300 miles away and they were level with him.
Right, but he saw it from an extremely elevated position. The mountains themselves are elevated. I mean, we're not talking about a guy seeing something 300 miles away from ground level. So that again, there are certain circumstances, certain conditions of the atmosphere where you can get things like that. I mean, everybody knows. I mean, rainbows are an illusion, mirages are an illusion. Like there are certain things that the atmosphere does to light that is dazzling or baffling to the human eye. But that again, we would be able to see every mountain from 300 miles away if the Earth was flat. Seeing it, in one circumstance doesn't prove anything. We had a pilot who called in yesterday talking about flying at night and seeing the glow of cities from about I think he said about 100 miles away, and then slowly you see the glow of the city rise up. I mean, hell, even when I was driving into Austin from the Renaissance Fair last weekend, the first thing I saw of Austin was the top of the skyscrapers. I mean, it's just everyday observations. You can see that the globe exists, that there's a curvature, and that things disappear over the edge of it.
I think that's kind of the big part here is that there's just typically a misunderstanding of the flat Earth position or what it actually has adequate explanations for. Like seeing things disappear bottom up would be what happens on a plane Earth. You have the ground ramp up. But just to clarify what is wrong with the observation in the plane, it's not that they're so far away you shouldn't see them, because you're right. He's super high in the air, right? So you're looking up from higher on the globe, and you can see further the higher you are, whether the Earth is flat or whether it's a globe. The problem is that they were level with him. They should have been 5 degrees below his level, his plane's level. They should have been 5 degrees below that.
Well,
they were level with him. That's a ton when you're talking about a military fighter jet establishing target acquirement or looking at the landmark. 5 degrees is a ton in the Air Force. And mind you, I mean, I'm not an Air Force pilot. I just listened to him, wrote it all down, showed me everything. He said that there's not a pilot in the world, there's not an Air Force pilot in the world that would tell you that 5 degrees is some type of acceptable range of error, right? So yeah, and honestly, like I said, I talked to kind of the top guys that defend the globe. They all just say this can't be true, or it would absolutely refute the globe. Well, he did it. So again, it was level with him.
Yeah, I mean, without proof, you can take his word for it. But again, I don't think that one anecdote disproves all of the things that we're talking about. Sure. And again, attenuation can go some way to explain some aspect of like things like why the sky is blue or why sunsets are multicolored, but it doesn't explain why the sun disappears completely at night. That's not explained by attenuation. Attenuation is just the diminution of light as it passes through an atmosphere. That's not it doesn't make things completely disappear in the way that we see the sun just obviously go behind the horizon. And I do want to look at a couple other pictures here. I know you're familiar with it, but I haven't heard your response to it. Things like the Lake Pontchartrain Causeway, if the crew can bring this up, where I mean, unless I'm missing something, it very clearly. So this is a longest bridge in the world for a while. I think there may be a longer one now, but Lake Pontchartrain just outside of New Orleans. This bridge is level to the surface of the water, but you can see a very clear curve as it diminishes over the horizon. So this was taken, I think, from about 15 stories up with an extreme zoom lens. That's why everything is compacted. That's why those bridges or the humps look so dramatic. Really, they're pretty your typical humps. So that's just an effect of the massive optical zoom lens. But I mean, clearly it goes over the horizon, and there's other pictures like this. I mean, why would it look like this if the Earth was flat?
Yeah. So, and just to throw out, I just really quickly dropped like 5 other pictures of Pontchartrain that we should pull up, because this is not what you see when you look at the whole bridge. It's insanely flat. But I'll point out a few things about this. This is an older argument from around 2015. It's kind of become a meme, actually. And most globbers have abandoned it because if that's the curvature of the Earth has to be like a fraction of the size they claim it is. It would have to be a tiny, tiny, tiny globe for that to be the curve of the Earth. Way smaller than 4,000 miles. It's a 100-mile radius globe, right? It's way too drastic a rate of curvature over that distance. In addition, it's a foreshortening effect based on optics and the atmos, which that place notoriously has pretty crazy atmospheric conditions and pollution and stuff. And we've replicated a flat surface. You put enough of an atmospheric temperature fluctuation and stuff, it'll start to warp it, compress it, make it look like it's curving. Also based on your angle. In this picture, I'm pretty sure they actually compressed it. So you can take a picture. It's so deceptive. Right. You can take a picture of a desk. Hold
on, Austin. We have a guest appearance here. Alex Jones has made his appearance at the Flat Earth Debate.
Listen, I'm going to ask you a real quick question. Are the sun?
Listen, now I'm just going to ask you a real quick question.
And other planets flat as well? Because I've been a big astronomer since I was a kid with my dad when we had the professional telescopes when I was a kid. Now anybody can have the computerized controls. I sat there overnight drinking a 12-pack beer in college with a 35mm camera hooked to a 12-inch refractor telescope and taking photos of Saturn and Jupiter and watched it as it's turning. Watch the globes turning. I put green lenses on the telescope and could watch the sun and over an hour see it turn and see see coronal mass ejections moving in the time lapse. Boom, it's round. Done.
Debate over, Austin. I'm sorry to tell you, you've now lost the debate, and the Earth is round. What's your response to what Alex just brought up there?
Yeah, the sun could be round, and it doesn't mean that the Earth is, right? So it's and also, by the way, the Earth can be round and flat. Of course, it could be a plane shape, it could be a plane circle, but yeah, I mean, I agree that they look like they could be spheres. They certainly look like discs in the sky. They have cycles, but they all move around the Earth. The Earth's in the center, right? It is illogical to look at the ceiling and be like, well, that's what the Earth is.
Right, but that's again, you can plot the paths of the planet from the Earth, and you can predict them and everything, but it makes so much more sense when you take the sun as the center. Everything's in a perfect little circle. Everything's concentric. It makes a hell of a lot more sense than trying to plot things from a geocentric. Which, I mean, how do you explain the way that the planets move in and then away from us, and then towards us and away from us? I mean, you can say torus field, but frankly, it's just not a good enough explanation.
The magnetic force, right? So there's a book by a PhD professor that is called Relational Mechanics. He breaks all this down. The specific force, Lorentz magnetic force, shows the dynamic equivalence of the planetary motion from a stationary position. Relational Mechanics, Andreas Sies, and there are many other papers like that exist. So the ironic part is it actually works better. This is what I like. It works way better. You don't need dark matter. You don't need dark energy. You don't need expansion. You don't need all these made up pseudoscience fairy tales. Gravity's been disproven. Everyone knows relativity doesn't even work. We don't have something better.
What do you mean gravity's been disproven? I mean, gravity
The
exists.
theory of
right?
relativity. The theory of relativity has been disproven, just like Newtonian gravity was disproven before that.
Right. So these are refinements of theories to explain natural phenomenon, but gravity exists, right? And it's different than electrostatic attraction. It's different than magnetic attraction. It's something else, right?
No, I wouldn't say well, okay, it's the effect of things falling to the earth, right? And it's little g, gravity. Of course it exists. We use it for engineering. We use it to determine weight. Of course it 100% exists. But why? What is it? Is there a force pulling everything down to the earth? Well, that's what the globe needs. The evidence for gravity is the way that it's been defined is that, well, the earth can't be a globe without it. But no, actually, density causes things to go up and down, and
Density.
electrostatics.
Why does density cause things to go up and down?
Because of buoyancy. So the relative density of the object with the medium, pressure mediation causes it to go up or down like a ping pong ball floats in water,
Right.
golf ball.
Because of gravity. Because buoyancy is an effect of gravity. Because without gravity, there'd be no reason for it to go up or down. It would.
Wait. We got. Okay, so the principle of density, right? Long predates the idea of gravity, but eventually we did throw little g in there. Like I'm saying, little g isn't a problem for flat Earth at all. It's just the downward acceleration. Little g is not the cause; it's the effect. Everyone knows the effect exists. Things go down when they have weight. Gravity, gravitas, means heavy. How heavy something is. Weight. We don't dispute that. We dispute the claimed cause of gravity. That the bending and warping of concepts called space and time somehow create illusions where everything shrinks and slows down and makes things fall to the Earth in a straight path that's curving at the same time. That's just all pseudoscience. I actually did. I want to plug the level documentary. I did a test there where we did actual science, and I used a Van de Graaff generator, which manipulates electrostatics, and I made the object change weight, fall at a different rate, go up and down just by manipulating the electric field, and that's what we have on the Earth. We have an electric field that has a 100 volt per meter increase, and when I flipped it with my Van de Graaff generator, it made the object float. So I proved that that's a cause of things falling down and why they fall down, and that's that every object that exists is electrostatic. So.
I mean, there's just so many things wrong with that. Obviously, it's not buoyancy. Buoyancy only exists because of gravity. If you had a tank of water out in space where there's no noticeable gravitational force, then you could put a beach ball in the center of the water. It would stay in the center of the water. There'd be no up for it to float to. So buoyancy is an effect of the gravitational pull of the Earth. Gravity is obviously not electrostatic. You can counteract gravity with forces. Obviously, I can counteract gravity by picking this up. That doesn't mean gravity doesn't exist. You can't affect gravity itself with electrostatic or electromagnetism. You can't block gravity with a lead wall, right? Nothing blocks gravity. So I mean, it's just obviously not electrostatic or magnetic or any other force that we can manipulate because we can't manipulate gravity. Except they probably can with the Bell experiment and other secret technology that they have that we all know they have. We'll be back on the other side. One more long chunk of this debate, and we'll get into the psyop aspect.
Obviously.
All right, folks, from the VOD to bring us in. He started this whole conundrum. I thought that was appropriate. One of my favorite songs, actually. I love this song. Austin Witsit is my guest at Witsit Gets It on X. WitsitGetsIt.com is his website you can go to. We've covered a lot of topics here. There's really only one more that I hear brought up quite a bit that I'd like to get into, and then I want to get into the aspects of the conspiracy that would be necessary to contain this lie if the round Earth is in fact a lie. But let's talk about sort of one of the other claims of the Earth's atmosphere existing next to a vacuum. Again, this seems, on first blush, it's like, oh, yeah, wait, why does that happen? How is that the case? We've got an atmosphere here. We've got a vacuum in space. What is it that stops the atmosphere from going into the vacuum of space? But we get that pressure goes down as we travel up in altitude, right? We get that the atmosphere gets thinner as it goes up. I mean, I don't think you dispute that. So, I mean, that makes perfect sense to me. I know, you say that to have air pressure, you have to have a container. But are there containers that are pressurized where there's a gradient? Because there's a gradient in our atmosphere that pretty well explains how the atmosphere sticks to Earth. It's gravity. It doesn't require a container. It requires a force. And in this case, that force is gravity.
Yeah, sure. So you can have a gradient, of course, but you need gas pressure to have a gradient. So it's delta X changing X. So you need X. You need the gas pressure. And what we're saying is the antecedent, the requirement for gas pressure is containment. You can absolutely replicate a pressure gradient in a container. You cannot replicate one without a container. And we see that the dispersal of gas is omnidirectional. It goes directly up. In the face of this alleged force that's not a force that's pulling everything down. Supposedly gravity is holding air, gas, next to a vacuum, but gas disperses in all directions instantly. So yes, we do have a pressure gradient on the Earth, but the requirement for that is an actual contained system that the gas can then begin to attempt to equalize within and give you a gradient. Just like if you have liquid propane or any type of gas, not liquid, but any type of gas in a container, there's going to be a gradient. There's going to be more gas at the bottom because we're confined within that. But it's not. But it's in a container. So as soon as I remove the container, right, it's going to disperse. Obviously, that's why sodas make the little sound, right? Because the pressure is equalizing to the pressure around it. So that's our point is that you can say gravity, but where gravity is supposedly the strongest at the surface of the Earth, gas goes in all directions, including directly up, and it goes directly into a vacuum. Gravity's not holding it down there. But supposedly where gravity is weaker, next to a 10 to the negative 17 torr vacuum, somehow it just sits there and it doesn't go and fill the available space, which is antithetical to,
Well, it's just a countervailing force. I mean, if you have a molecule of air that floats up to the top of the atmosphere and then floats out of the atmosphere, and now it's not surrounded by anything, it's all, for all intents and purposes, in a vacuum, it's still being affected by the gravity of Earth, and it'll drift back to Earth. I mean, what is the force that's pulling it away from the other air molecules in a vacuum? I mean, again, this really doesn't seem all that complicated to me. I mean, the gravity pulls the air down. The air, close to the surface of the planet is thicker because that's where gravity's pulling everything. But air is light enough to float because of buoyancy or density. It doesn't all fall straight down to the Earth. This is just an effect of gravity. Again, you don't need a container to explain this. You just need a force that is working on the molecules to keep them attached to Earth, right? I mean, again, I don't get how this is. A container is not necessary.
like I said, though, like we're claiming a force is pulling the gas down to Earth, but gas goes in all directions, including directly up and violently. It's the second law of thermodynamics. The co-author Eddington, any idea or theory you have that's contrary to the second law is just completely, inexcusable and dead on its face. But you're saying that the gravity is basically pulling the air back down in the face of a vacuum. But where does the gravity of Earth stop affecting gas then, right? Because the gravity of the Earth doesn't extend the entire universe. And so the air is still going to fill the available space, and it fills the available space on the surface where gravity would be the strongest. So very simply, it's very easy to replicate what we have on the Earth. With a container, you can create a gradient, certainly with all the gas that's been introduced to the surface level and the gas cycle and the temperature and the density differences, but you cannot replicate it without a container. So that's the argument. And gravity, again, has actually been disproven. And we've proven our understanding of gravity, which is that it's electric. We've actually proven it with experiments. So
but
that would be like
so you can affect gravity with electricity?
what people call gravity, which is the effect of things falling down, right? Yeah, I can take electrostatics and I can make things go up. And actually, when you brought up the bell, that's what they did. They actually used what they call ether physics. I have a really good book on it. It's called The Bell. And they used electrogravitic propulsion. So of course, the Nazis back in like as early as 20s and 30s, they had these UFOs. They were using the electric nature of the environment to make things quote unquote levitate and defy material physics. They weren't using an anti-gravity device that bit space and time. It was electrogravitic propulsion. They actually they called Einstein's theory mysticism, and they applied what they called ether physics. That's been hidden and suppressed. They went in and grabbed all of Tesla's work, and now they say that Einstein is correct. And of course, we have no technology. All the technology the military is using for these devices, I guarantee you, is electric. Because, like I said, in science, you have naturally occurring observable phenomena, dependent variable. You try to figure out what causes it. So things fall down. What causes it? Well, let's say it's electrostatics. Let's test it. We're going to manipulate that. I did that, and I can make the object go up and float. I can make it fall down faster. And on the Earth, you have an electric field. And everything that exists is electrostatic. Everything's electric. Right? So it would be insane to think that it doesn't have something to do with everything being electric, because that's 10 to the 36th power stronger than gravity's even claimed to be on the smallest scale. So it's one of the biggest systems.
Right, but that doesn't disprove gravity. Again, electric currents have or electric. They have properties that gravity doesn't have, so it just can't be the same thing, and you can't block it. You can't really affect it. I mean, there may be hidden technology like the bell that are able to manipulate gravity, but they're not doing it in a way that is easily replicable, I don't think. And again, you can counteract the force of gravity, but I don't think you can actually manipulate it. I think that might be an illusion of what's happening there. But all of this to the side, all of the perception versus reality, or what we can see and what explains it, the conspiracy necessary to keep this lie going. If round Earth was a lie, it is so impossibly vast. I mean, it just makes no sense. There's no payoff for it other than maybe moderately affecting people's willingness to believe, which again, it's like, the idea that we're in a firmament or that we're the center of the Earth. I mean, nothing in God's creation, proves God. That's sort of like one of the aspects of it, right? There are lots of things that could prove God that would be miraculous.
I got to pause it on that. There's nothing, like he said, oh, nope, we're not going to use spiritual. And Robert brought up, maybe not biblical. And he hasn't brought up the biblical, but think about what he just said. I'm going to rewind it.
There's no payoff for it other than maybe moderately affecting people's willingness to believe, which again, it's like, the idea that we're in a firmament or that we're the center of the Earth. I mean, nothing in God's creation, proves God. That's sort of.
Okay. Does it not say in Scripture that no man will be without excuse because it is plain to see from creation that he is God?
Yeah, that all of creation testifies of his glory and his will, and none will be without excuse, because it testifies of it, that they won't be able to deny him.
Yeah. But he literally just contradicted that in such. There's no way that you can prove God. Nothing in creation proves God. So yeah, pretty sus. He was saying,
and he was saying, even in a enclosed model, nothing would prove God, which tells me he really does not understand the implications of it, because it's like, if you live in a terrarium, like, who built the terrarium?
Exactly.
Who built this thing that you live in?
Yeah, and it connects what I was saying earlier, where it's like the great deceiver, he's going to tell you a good lie that's believable. Austin, even in this, kind of talked about that deception aspect of it. They're going to talk about it more later. But just to quickly finish, you kind of see the weakness in their ideology. And this is one of the things that I'll say is I'm not a huge fan of InfoWars. I actually stopped watching them after the Eddie Bravo videos were deleted from their platform. Mm-hmm. And specifically talking about the True Earth. And but what I will say is Austin is the greatest person to come on here and to talk about it. Because if there's any intellectually honest people out there and they hear this conversation and they're leaning, more towards the globe, I think it'll put a few, it'll take away the pep in the step of that ideology.
Oh yeah, especially since how well spoken Austin is as well. He's not even by Harrison's accord. He is not stupid or like just he's not just parroting concepts. He's spitting actual facts from books most people don't even read. You probably have to go to a special astronomy course in college to read the Copernican principle and all of that good jazz. And he's read all these books. He's memorized a lot of the quotes, and he can articulate the model so well that anyone with an honest mind was going to come in and say, okay, well, Harrison did not make a good argument against what he claimed. I'm going to have to go look into this now.
Yeah, and I think that's
he
the
did
positive
really well.
from these type of debates or conversations. But sweet, let's keep chugging along.
I agree.
Like one of the aspects of it, right? There are lots of things that could prove God that would be miraculous, that you could go, oh my, there's nothing other than God that explains this. Yeah, the Earth being at the center of the universe would be one of those things, but it's not, because it's not, right? It's not the center of the Earth, so it doesn't prove that. But nothing in creation proves that. So this idea that, I guess it's almost like contradictory. We're like, yeah, if we were in a giant, celestial hamster cage with the firmament over us, it would prove that God exists.
Projection.
But also in a weird way, that's not what God does. So it would prove something other than God exists. It would, that doesn't make any sense to me. And then you've got just tens of thousands of people working on space programs. Let me give you an example. I have a friend about 10 years ago. He was working for a company that built the titanium aluminum rings that connected satellites to the vessel that took them into space. So you've got a small company with about 4 or 5, Ivy League doctorate engineers that are working on building these rings to attach the satellite to the rocket. And that's just one company of thousands that exist out there. Are they in on it? Are they being fooled? Do you have another company that's coming up with the false information to feed to them, to make them think that when they go to watch the satellite launch, are they just watching the thing they built flying to the sea, and then somebody else is launching a balloon that just looks like a satellite? I mean, explain some of this to me, because the conspiracy necessary to carry this out is so vast, it's just nonsensical.
Yeah, so it would be like I said, to use the adoption analogy, be like, is everyone in the church and your school and your community in on the lie? Like, no, they believe the lie. Satellites aren't a problem for flat Earth. And I know that many flat earthers will say that, they don't necessarily believe in them and that they think there's a lot of balloons. And there is a classified, very, very advanced balloon project that is going on, and it is conducting a massive surveillance on the public. This is just a fact, but yeah, like a mixed fleet of military surveillance balloons, and NASA's the number one purchaser of helium in the world, and this is true. But satellites are not a problem for flat Earth. That's just a belief that it is, but it's not. Actually, the satellite equations use geocentric physics and equations. They use real inertial forces, as if the Earth is stationary in what's called an Earth-centered, Earth-fixed frame, or an ECI, Earth-centered inertial frame. And it's not to get all into the technical aspects. Satellites are not exclusive at all to a globe Earth or a moving Earth. In fact, it's exclusive to a stationary Earth based on the physics and equations they use. And then for it to be on a plane Earth, it would just be an ellipse. But to answer your question precisely,
wait, hold on. It would be an ellipse? I mean, what does that mean? So satellites exist, they're floating above us, above the atmosphere, but they're just continually circling a plane?
Yeah, they certainly could be, right? Like, I've seen Starlink myself. I've watched launches myself. I know that there's what people call Starlinks in the sky. It's not a problem at all, because it's just a coordinate system transformed from a globe to a plane. And the actual physics and equation treat the Earth as if it's stationary.
No,
that should be significant, because it's not just, it's a coordinate system, you can treat it like that because it's from the Earth. No, it's using physics in the equations, and specifically inertial forces, which do not exist in the relativistic globe model. Which means if the satellites are up there and they are working, if they're proof of anything, to quote PhD astronomer Gerardus Bow, it's proof that the Earth is stationary and the universe is geocentric. But those people that made the pieces aren't.
See, that's a completely fallacious extrapolation. I mean, so ECI, right? Earth-centered inertial coordinates versus ECEF, something like that, Earth-centered, Earth-fixed, right? So, both of these are coordinate systems for a spherical Earth. The only difference is one of them takes the spin of the Earth into account, while the other one doesn't. First of all, that this it requires a spherical Earth, first of all, right, for these coordinates to make any sense. They also take into account the spinning of the Earth, meaning it's not stationary. One of them doesn't take into account the spinning of the Earth, but it's not because it's not spinning, it's just because that's not the coordinate system just doesn't rely on the spinning of the Earth. And regardless of any outcome of those, that has nothing to do with whether the sun is circling the Earth. It's about satellites.
I'm not talking about the sun. I'm saying that
the
actual physics
universe.
Well, yeah, I'm saying that's because they use forces of a rotating universe. They actually treat the universe as if it's rotating and creating real inertial forces, specifically centrifugal, Coriolis, and Euler forces. And in the globe model, those are fictitious forces. They're not real. In a stationary Earth model, the universe is actually rotating around the Earth, creating angular momentum. Satellites would be using that on a stationary Earth. Well, that's what the physics and equations show. They treat it as if the universe is rotating around the Earth, creating a real force, and they have to account for them to put the satellites up. And then on a plane, you're right, that is a globe, but on a plane, that's just a coordinate system transform. It becomes an ellipse, and it takes the same flower of life geometry I showed earlier. Actually, one of those depictions was the ISS path. Right, so, and that's just mapped out on a plane.
But continual motion would, in that case, I mean, with an orbit, either continual motion is a consequence of just the fact that there's no wind resistance, and so once your initial velocity basically will be maintained with a little bit of variance because of the tiny amount of atmosphere that does exist outside of what we consider the atmosphere, the 62-mile delineation, which is not a scientific delineation, it's an aeronautical delineation, determining whether or not you can fly using conventional methods or whether you need rocket propulsion. So you can have inertia that exists that continually rocket something around the Earth without additional input. But if something's just floating above a plane, it either needs to be pushed in a way that that's continually being pushed. But even if not, it would need something to change its direction. I mean, how do you explain that? If satellites just floating above us and in ellipses, you would need external forces. That would require fuel. That would be pretty obvious to people building the satellite, right?
Like I said, they use the actual force of the universe rotating around the Earth in the physics and equations. And so on a stationary Earth, that's it. Instead of the Earth spinning, making the illusion that the sky spins, right? It's actually the sky spinning around the Earth like we observe. That would generate a real force. It would have angular momentum, and there would be a net inward force. So if you threw something up in it, it would just continually move around with the universe's momentum, the actual angular momentum and force of the universe. And what I'm pointing out is that's literally the physics and equations that they use. And
But you're still
that's a big
describing a
deal.
spherical Earth.
Well, that's why I point out that the end of it, right? Because that actually is a major problem for heliocentrism. But the plane, or it's just a coordinate system transform, you could think you're going around the globe, and it would just be an ellipse over a plane, and you would have no idea. They actually account for a change in velocity, which makes perfect sense with an ellipse. But in the globe model, it's supposedly free falling in a geodesic path, not changing velocity. That they actually do account for change in velocity and a change in the speed of light for the signals for GPS. So what they're actually doing and accounting for doesn't work with the model. It's just overlooked. People assume it. I wanted to address what you were asking, though, the meta here, which is like, are these people in on it? No, of course not, bro. They think the Earth's a globe. They think we just use these coordinate systems for convenience sake, right? And it works. It's good enough. Who cares? They think they use Newtonian gravity, even though that's no longer the case. It works good enough. And people make little pieces for it. That's one of the main arguments for Apollo. It's like there were 300,000 people that were all in on it because they made pieces. It's like, no, they compartmentalize the job to everyday Americans. So you would ask me that question, right? So you would think it's legit.
That's not how compartmentalization works. I mean, compartmentalization is an aspect of like the military and secret operations. The people who are compartmentalized know they're compartmentalized. The people who are building satellites are in communication with the people building the other parts of the satellite, and they observe it as it flies, and then they get readings, data readings to determine whether or not the mission was successful. So they would have to be fed fake information, or like what happens is, I mean, they think they're launching a satellite into orbit. Are they not? Or is there a parallel industry that's doing the real math and feeding them the fake information? I mean, you get this whole thing just sort of falls apart the more you think about it. And that's not even getting into the secrecy aspect, where you'd have to, again, either have these people who are doing this for decades without even either noticing that something is wrong or admitting or letting it leak out that something is wrong. The scale of conspiracy, especially now with all of these private companies going into space, is so vast. And again, nonsensical, man. If I was the mastermind, the Jesuit priest that figured out that there's a firmament and wants to trick everybody, the last thing I would do would be come up with a lie that would set up generations of having to fake things, right? You could just say, yeah, we tried to go to space. It turns out there's like crazy radiation and everybody died.
Oh, why would the devil try to trick people for generations? Weird, Harrison.
So let's not try to leave. Like, there's a million other ways you could do it. You're thinking they went with the strategy of let's fake space travel for the next 100 years, on a continual basis. As a conspiracy theorist, somebody who sits here and thinks and talks about conspiracies every day, this falls utterly, pardon the pun, flat. This makes no sense as a conspiracy at all.
Well, I strongly disagree, brother. Like, for one, let's not conflate like if satellites are up there with space travel. Those are fundamentally different things. I mean, they're not really faking space that much. They claim they went in the 60s and haven't gone back for 50 years and destroyed the technology and blah blah blah. We've caught NASA faking it. So I encourage everyone to investigate that. You can actually go to my channel, I have a NASA fraud series I just started. We have objectively caught them faking things using wires, harnesses, green screens, bubbles in space, and people laugh because it sounds so ridiculous. You know how many things you laughed at when you first heard and you found out it's true? If I told you the world was going to shut down overnight and start using prison terms like lockdown, you would think I was crazy as well. We've caught NASA lying and faking it. And really, they've got to put it off. They just kick the ball down the road over and over and over. They kick the can down the road, right? Oh, the moon mission's delayed again. So they haven't had to fake that much. And I don't even contend that satellites could be up there. It's not a problem. And the people that are working on it aren't in on it. To quote Gene Kranz, the Apollo flight director from the Apollo missions, he said, the simulations are so good that no one in the control room can tell the difference between the simulations and the real thing. And astronauts have come out and said that when they supposedly were going on these missions, they thought it was fake. They couldn't even tell the difference. So absolutely, they wouldn't be in on it. They're just being fed the system through a globe coordinate system, GPS corrections. And this gets into technical things. I will just say this. They're good questions. And I think if you're open-minded about your questions and open to the answers of them, when you really do dig into it, you find out, oh, wow, they're making corrections for the Sagnac effect because it doesn't work. They show different distances. They're making meridian corrections in the south because the distances don't work like they should on the globe. They're actually running it through programs to correct and then put it out to the people on the other end as if it was in fact the globe that's working. And these are provable things that require diligent research. So I don't think that the lie is really going to require that many people be in on it. They just believe the lie, right? And by the way, many people have found out it's not true. We've even had people that were astronauts come out and say, anyone telling you they're going to outer space, I guarantee you, is lying. We've had a Polish astronaut come out and say, I wasn't expecting this question, but yes, the Earth is flat. No one's going to outer space. I think that most of, let me say this one thing. Do you might find this interesting? I went and talked to astronauts myself, okay? And I caught them lying. I asked them, do you see the stars on the day side of the Earth when you're in space next to the sun? And they said, no, you can't see the stars because of the sun. But the official story is that you can only not see the stars during daytime because of the Earth's atmosphere. And you can see them in space. And half the astronauts that have supposedly been in space said you can see the stars. It's pitch black. It's amazing. You can even see them by the sun.
Right.
I looked an astronaut in the face and asked them, and they lied. So why are they lying, right? Like,
well, yeah, I've heard that, but you're comparing two different situations. I mean, some astronauts say, yeah, we could see the stars. Other astronauts say we couldn't see the stars, but they weren't next to each other on the same mission looking out the same window. So these are just different accounts of different situations. That doesn't prove anything. I mean, it just proves sometimes you can see the stars, sometimes you can't, depending on the source and strength of the light and the angle of the reflection off the Earth, or where you're looking out the window of the spaceship. I mean, these are not proof that the Earth is flat or that astronauts are lying. It's proof that there are different conditions at different times in space and Earth. But we only have about 2 minutes left here. Do you think that this is a valuable thing to spend time on? I mean, we know all of the things going on in the world, and we probably agree on 99% of things. It's just this one thing that we disagree on, which to me, again, the fact that this came out of nowhere, that nobody talked about flat Earth before. I mean, and you can do the research, you can look into the archives. Nobody talked about flat Earth. Flat Earth Society existed. You said it's a CIA psyop, but it's also
okay. I gotta stop. So he's saying nobody talked about it before. I've even showed on stream a book that I have where it's in the from 1963 that's literally having the discussion in the book about the flat compared to the heliocentric model. So to say that no one's talked about this is ridiculous. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the terrestrial plane, the shape of the Earth, zetetic astronomy, the Gerald Hickson's book, I forgot the name of it, Kings to the Throne. These are all books that were written in the 1800s, 1900s, late 1700s, and it's it's ridiculous to claim that there was nothing written about it or discussed about it up until this point. It's just it's mind blowing to me. It just shows that he hasn't done any research at all.
Exactly, and his whole in the beginning, I looked into it. It from this conversation falls pretty flat. Let's
Yep.
finish this out. We'll have a little review at the end, and we'll call it good. But let's go.
Where most of these arguments came from. So that isn't exactly positive for the flat Earth model. Divide, distract, discredit. It's a divide and conquer influence operation. It's something that splits our audience down the middle, and suddenly we're talking about flat Earth instead of things that are actually important. I think this has been extremely successful. PSYOP launched around the time that the Smith-Mundt Act, Modernization Act, was passed, allowing for propaganda in the American media landscape.
That doesn't really, I mean, that allows the government through their liaisons in the media to actually lie to us, but they're not doing that. They're saying no ancient civilization ever knew that the Earth was flat. They're blatantly lying about it and misrepresenting it. They do clearly use it as a way to discredit other conspiracies, but it's just like, oh, I bet you're an anti-vaxxer. Like, just because someone uses it that way to dismiss people doesn't mean there's no validity to it. As to the PSYOP, what I'm going to reiterate is if it's a PSYOP, it's not working very well because everyone that finds out that the Earth is a geocentric stationary plane are taking their children out of school. They're homeschooling. They're not falling for medical like PSYOPs. They're not falling for any of the stuff going on, the political shenanigans. They see through all of it, and it brings them all back to a very founded spiritual aspect of their life. And again, you asked me if I think it's important. I do think it's important, bro, because I could very easily talk about other things, right? And I wouldn't be nearly as kind of put into a corner, but I don't because this unravels.
We're coming
all
to the
of
show
us.
here. I just want to thank you for doing this. This has been extremely fun. I know it's been extremely popular. Austin Witsit at Witsit Gets It on X. Go follow him.
Follow the networks lie to you about what's happening now. InfoWars tells you the truth about what's happening next. Infowars.com/go.
So what I really want to ask you to do is pray for myself and the crew and my family. That's number one. I want that. I need that. It's your prayer that's doing it. That's why this surfaced. That's why this happened. I need the prayer. Then I need you to take the articles, the videos, the posts we make at Real Alex Jones, recopy them, share them, post them yourself, do whatever. Just get it out there. And I need you to go to InfoWarsStore.com, and I need you to get great products you already need. There's a bunch of sales going. DNA Force Plus is so good for your entire body. Flushes out your mitochondria and your cells with the PQQ, the CoQ10, the ELV, ATP, the organic reishi, the astragalus, bravolis, root, and even more for 50% off. I haven't done that in a while. That's amazing.
I guess that was it. So let's go ahead and stop that. That's no one wants to listen to that. Sweet. So, yeah, let's kind of finish this up. Well, I'll drop this. We'll bring our cameras back up.
I don't know if you can hear me, but
Yeah, I can
have
hear
no
you.
sound. I gotta like come back in or something because I can't hear you at all.
All right, sweet. So let's let him drop off and come back up, and hopefully that will fix his issues.
Okay. We're good.
Sweet. So yeah, what are your kind of final conclusions about the debate, about the conversation, and yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. There was a lot of points that I personally would have loved to touch on individually. I wish the debate was with me. But I'm not like Austin who can go before people like that. But there was a lot of assumptions in it, and a lot of things that clearly hadn't been researched. Where I think the things that popped out the most to me were, for instance, his interpretation of what the moon is and how it absolutely has to be a physical object, and it can't be something that is transparent in its appearance as we see. He clearly hasn't done a lot of research on that.
Yeah.
And the toroidal spirographs, that, I mean, it, I think it's hard to convince someone from, like, to come to the side of enclosed cosmology from just that understanding. But when you start to like, you understand how the supposed planets are supposed to move around the sun, and the moon is supposed to move around the earth, and they plot that out on a little chart there. I think it's kind of sorry, I'm gonna turn my camera on here. Um, I think when you show the spirograph over the flat plane of the Earth, you have a perfect representation of how each of these bodies move. And as much as they like to say we don't have a model that works, uh, to be frank, you kind of stole our model and modified it to appeal to your understanding and your side of it. But in reality, everyone from all of history always thought the Earth was enclosed and geocentric and the center of creations. So it's obviously he's coming from the standpoint that for thousands of years everyone's always believed that the
Hmm.
Earth is a sphere, that this has been the educated understanding for all peoples for thousands of years, and we're just at a point where we can venture out and explore it, and all these little caveats of their theory where they're like, oh well, the vacuum of space, where does air have a ceiling, what's the top of the atmosphere where air terminates and the vacuum of space begins. Well, they're still coming up with where the Kármán line is and what that what that actually entails, and what airs are present at what thickness. And it's as Austin goes throughout the entire debate and says they are and have been working on this model for hundreds of years, and they're still in the process of constructing it. And now that we can see it in the way that True Earth actually opens our eyes, we can see as they're in real time trying to construct different aspects of it. One of the more recent things is that the moon's atmosphere extending out beyond the moon itself,
Yeah.
or the Earth's atmosphere extending out beyond the moon itself. Excuse me.
Yeah, and yep, and Harrison literally is okay with that. He literally says over and over, well, that's science. Like, we keep improving, the theory, right? When Austin brings up that Newtonian physics and now special relativity have been disproven, right? And we've had the introduction of all these new theories that kind of try to patch the holes in the pipe, if you will, of the system. And so it's so preposterous. And just with Harrison, it kind of annoyed me that he just constantly was like, it's obvious, right? We see that it's a sphere. Like, can we both, he starts out with like, can we both agree that the Earth is, that the moon is a sphere, right? This definitive statement as if he has proven it himself, right? Like it's
Right,
it's
which Austin has the perfect rebuttal for, which is that I've never seen the other side of it.
yeah, I've never seen the other side of it, right? But and then another thing that Harrison does is that he leans on the produced evidence from the powers that be, right? He says, oh, well, the government, and I don't trust NASA in the beginning, but he constantly leans on their authority and their evidence as such, right? And he says, well, if someone would told me it was because, we're stationary and everything's going around us, that's probable, just as if someone told me, no, all this stuff is probable. However, he's basically saying, like, the illusion can be true and God created that illusion. And so it's interesting,
which makes
right?
God a liar.
Yeah. And so multiple, like, does he ever, talk about God? He talks about spiritualism and says he doesn't want to talk about that. And I think we saw very evidently through his, from his point of view, why he wouldn't invoke the spiritual part, why he wouldn't look at scripture as evidence towards our creation, seeing that it coincides with our observations while we live here on earth. So sweet.
I agree.
All right. Well, I hope y'all enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed, Kyle. Good night, Robert. I hope you are sleeping well, brother. Thanks for sticking it through for the time that you did. Thank you all into chat that joined us. We really do appreciate it. Remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. That all helps the channel grow. We're teetering on 1170. We go down to. It's probably some gravelers out there trying to ruffle feathers, but just got to keep going. But anyways, yeah, good night, everyone. Shabbat shalom. See y'all tomorrow, 9 to 11 p.m. Eastern time, for our next episode, which we're going to be talking about dinosaurs. So I hope y'all are excited for that. Yeah, so until next time, remember that ABBA loved you first. Good night, everybody.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.
Peace.
It's your glory, conceal the mystery. You give us the honor to search a matter. You raise up a standard to beat back our enemy. You establish this realm, and like a scroll you spread it out. Dig deep, search it out. Dig deep, seek it out. Dig deep, go on and walk it out. Dig deep, I give you oil to fill up your cup.